75 minutes. I can put food in my stomach. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, August 2nd. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by Odds Shopper. Big time slate today, 14 games, trade deadline as well. Lots of guys moving all around the place, including Juan Soto, which finally is done. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Adam, how are you?
Good. Been enjoying the trade deadline. Curious what we'll get during this show because it ends at the end of our show.
Yeah. I'm just going to sit back, relax, handle all of that nonsense at 6:30 or something around there. Thoughts on the Soto trade?
I mean, I obviously think it's good. It's great for the Padres. I think as far as the Nats go, like, it's still not what Soto is worth, but also you run into the issue of teams only have, like, the same team only has so many prospects. You can only get so much for him. I don't think they were going to get a whole lot more from anybody else, even if they had waited. Like, when they first announced the deal and Mackenzie Gore wasn't in it, I was mocking the Nats because I was just like, there's no way that they couldn't have just gotten a better offer, like, in the offseason if they couldn't right now. But then once you throw Gore in, I mean, they took Gore, they took Abrams, they took Wood, who was their number 3 prospect. They took, what's his name? Harrell, who's their number 1 prospect. Like, the only guy they left him with was Campusano, the catcher. So, and Jackson Merrill, the shortstop. Like, I know, like, some Nats fans, I guess, are upset they didn't get one of those guys. But, realistically, you're not going to get more than, like, those 4 prospects from any other team because most teams just don't have them.
Yeah, this is what's different about basketball. You can't trade future picks, which is obviously another dumb thing that you can't do. But that's how this trade ends up looking different. Even if you could just trade like bonus money or something, there's caps to that if I remember correctly.
Right, and also the thing that makes it really difficult, not only do a lot of teams not have multiple prospects that are that good, but most teams that have stockpiled prospects like that, it's because they've been bad for a few years, so they're not in a position to compete. Like, there were those articles, just kind of like articles to think about, what teams could give up the most for Soto, and like the Orioles were always in there because they could certainly have topped that offer. They could have offered more than San Diego did, but the Orioles have no interest in Juan Soto at this point because they would just be a really shitty team with Juan Soto and no more prospects left. So, like, finding a team like the Padres that is trying to win and has a bunch of good, like top 100 prospects is pretty difficult. So it's just tough to think that it was going to be topped.
Just a wild deal. Did you expect to see Bell as well?
I was a little surprised. I mean, it had been rumored all day, so I wasn't surprised then. But I mean, it makes sense. Like, they got Voit back, and then Hosmer went to Boston, which I still have no idea what Boston's doing right now.
Yeah, I don't really have an idea either. What do you think Baltimore's doing?
Just selling off pieces that are either, in Mancini's case, about to be free agents, or in Lopez's case, relatively replaceable.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know. Like, how do you feel about what they've done so far? You're one of the few people that would actually care.
I think Mancini, they needed to trade Mancini. I hate that they needed to trade him, but like, I think from a baseball standpoint, that was good. And then the Lopez deal, I think with Lopez, they could have gone either way. Like, he was still under control for a few years, but at the same time, you got 4 pitching prospects for a guy that, we got for Jonathan Scope like 3 or 4 years ago because he was struggling in the major leagues. Now we threw him in the bullpen. He became good. Now we got 4 pitching prospects for him. So, like, even having, plus, like, you have Bautista that they're just going to move into the closer role, I would assume. Dylan Tate, if they don't trade him, probably gets more high leverage innings. So, like, anytime you can get pitching prospects for a relief pitcher, I think it makes sense, especially when the Orioles have had as much success as they have just turning guys into good relievers.
Yeah, and for the Orioles, like, he's basically irrelevant to, like, he's not changing any output of what you're going to do this year. You're not going to like win or lose any more games really by having him or going to your next guy up. Take the guys.
And realistically,
now.
that's the case with Mancini too. Like, they called up Yasniel Diaz yesterday when they traded Mancini. I don't really know why they called him up and not Stowers. I don't know if Stowers is hurt or what the deal is, but like, assuming sooner or later Stowers is the replacement for Mancini, you're probably not. That's not that big of a difference there either. You can, again, you can replace Lopez with Bautista. It's not, you're not getting that much worse. Like, it's not like they went from, oh, we're competing for the wild card to like we have no chance. You're still functionally the same probability.
It's the perfect time to do that too, because they're running hot. They've got they're basically like a 500 team. That's the perfect opportunity because you're going to have a guy that has accrued more saves. Like you can put it on the sticker and make it look a little bit better. It's not like you're dead last trying to sell off a closer that isn't able to close for your team. Like you can bump him up a little bit just from perception just because he has saves. So that's always interesting.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if we get any more Orioles trades during this hour because like I wouldn't be surprised if Tate gets moved just for the same reasons we just mentioned with Lopez, but he's also under team control until like 2026. But like if they were to trade Santander, that's something that like you're starting to really take wins away from your team, but also he's got a few more years of team control, so it's possible that you just get a really good offer for him, and it's just like, yeah, cool, I'll take it. So I'm interested to see if they do anything else.
We will find out soon enough.
Definitely an interesting team too, where like you and I talk about it a lot. Obviously, like we definitely treat pro sports as numbers and not people. It definitely had to be a pretty uncomfortable thing for the Orioles to trade Mancini and Lopez in the midst of how well they've been playing, and the fact that the team has been bad for so long, the fans are finally coming back out, and then they're just like, all right, yeah, your favorite player is gone and so is your closer.
Yeah, that's true. 14 games, man. We got a lot to talk about here. Some of it's ugly. Pitching's different for today. A lot of guys looking the same up and down the salary tier. Hitting to me was pretty flat. I didn't have anybody that was really separating from the pack. So I think there's a lot of like intricacy to this slate. So I'm ready to talk about it if you are.
Yeah, Matt Boyd traded to the Mariners. I totally forgot Matt Boyd was a baseball player still.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were advocating pretty heavily like 4 years ago for him to go to the Astros.
I thought the Astros should be willing to give up Alvarez for him like 4 years ago.
Well, I'm glad you're not the GM.
Yeah, that would have gone. That's easily one of the worst sports takes I've ever had.
You should have shut your mouth. No one would have known. Although I'm sure there's some sort of like Twitter paper trail, but that's going to be buried. 4 years ago tweets for you. I can't even imagine how many tweets that is.
Right. Yeah.
A lot. Anyway, let's get into it. Hit that like button. We're about to get started. We're starting with a team that is significantly worse than they were a couple hours ago. Nats and Mets. I probably might even need to grab an updated line here, but let's just say the Mets are aggressive favorites in this one. Corey Abbott going for Washington. Jake DeGrom going for the Mets. No ownership going to Abbott. We're not even going to delve into that one. He's not going deep either. Let's start with this bigger question. DeGrom, by the way, 10,300, most expensive pitcher on today's slate. How deep do you think Jacob DeGrom can go? Currently projected for about 20% ownership.
So I haven't seen anything official on him. My assumption is that he'll throw somewhere around 80-ish pitches. He threw 67 in his most recent rehab outing. He's had all sorts of injuries over the last couple of years. Common sense would say that they're going to, be pretty cautious with him. The counter argument would be it's the Mets and this team ruins pitchers like it's like better than anybody else, at least injury wise. The Pirates are ruining them in terms of talent. But my assumption is that you're getting like 80, 85 pitches from DeGrom, but he can like absolutely destroy this team.
Yeah.
As it currently stands, you have Nelson Cruz in there. You don't have Soto. You don't have Bell. I mean, this team is unbelievably bad. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that you get like a 5-inning, 10 strikeout game and DeGrom still looks good. He still doesn't have, assuming he's going to be somewhat limited, he doesn't have that 40-point upside that he would have if he was just a full go here. But I do think he's at least playable, especially if you're playing like 150 lineups, just because he can really do a lot of damage in 5 innings.
Yeah, I ran him through we have him 16% chance to be a top 2 pitcher. I was a little bit lighter than that, but nothing crazy. I am getting to him in my crunches, but I'll probably be a little bit under that 20% mark. It's just that there's no real legitimate talent in this Washington lineup. And what's crazy is somehow, I mean, maybe this makes sense, but based on steamer rates, like it's actually a really bad strikeout matchup. I would have expected a couple of these guys to just have a lot of swing and miss in their game, but I think it's a lot more, contact style guys. And
Yeah, I mean, that's been the Nats in general.
yeah. And also, none of that matters because DeGrom will strike out anyone. So,
Right. I mean,
there's
that's the
also
thing.
that.
You can be a below average strikeout hitter. That rate is still going to increase significantly when you're facing Jacob DeGrom. It
Sure
just
is.
is still lower than it would be for, Joey Gallo.
We'll put him into perspective as we get a little bit further. We got a couple other guys. We've got Burns, we've got Gossman, both pulling like 30% ownership. I'm guessing you're going to be ahead, or you're going to be putting DeGrom behind both of those guys, but we'll get there when we get there. We're not playing Nats bats, so we could just cross that off, correct?
Agreed.
Perfect. Mets, on the other hand, are our current top stack. They are second in ownership. They're my top stack. And top stack is a very relative term for today, or even the ownership is relative. Starling Marte is the highest owned Met bat at 13%. Seems pretty obvious to me that I'm going to be getting to the Mets.
Yeah, it's a really good spot. Obviously there's a lot of teams, so your relative exposure to hitters is going to probably be spread out a little bit more than usual, but they're not getting a ton of ownership because the top of the order is relatively expensive, in addition to the fact that there's just so many alternatives. But you can balance it out a little bit. It does suck that Pete Alonso and Daniel Vogelbach are both first basemen hitting 4.5. So on DraftKings, you can only play one of them, but you do get a $2,100 discount going to Vogelbach over Alonso. So that's one way you can save money in some lineups. But it just looks like a good spot against the Nats. 5.4 implied run total. Abbott at AAA this year was striking out about 25.5% of hitters, but also had an xFIP up around 5. So not expected to be a particularly good pitcher. He went 4 innings in his most recent start, so kind of a modified bullpen game, I think, for the Nats.
I ran my dummy crunch before this started. The Mets are my most exposed stack, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Not getting anything crazy like 65% Mets catchers or something, which some people that I know had as their primary stack yesterday. Not the Mets, but a different team. So my numbers are more in like the 20% range, something really reasonable. Go Royals.
Yeah, I still don't know why that happened.
You sent me that screenshot and I was just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I was like, you didn't know that till like 7:04. Like that was my first thought.
But like everything I tried to fix it didn't fix it. I think it was just that all the other teams, like the teams that I would have liked, were just getting a lot of ownership, and so I just took the best value team and built really good lineups around it and hoped it worked out.
Cash options from the Mets side, I think it feels like we're going to be wide open for cash tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think that any of those guys at the top that you get to are certainly reasonable. Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, maybe Vogelbach. I think there's probably better cheap options, or you're going to pay up, but maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else to say about the rest of this game because we certainly can't even mention Nats. So let's move it on to game number 2. Pirates and Brewers. 2.9 run implied total for the Pirates, 4.6 for the Brewers. Bryce Wilson and Corbin Burns. No ownership going to Wilson. Don't think we really need to talk too much there. We definitely need to talk Corbin Burns. 10,100, second most expensive pitcher on today's slate behind DeGrom, projected for basically the most ownership. He and Kevin Gausman are essentially tied, and that seems spot on to me. This is the guy that I'm going to take the biggest stand on for today. I am over that 30% number. I love getting to Burns here. Not the best strikeout matchup in the world, but he's fantastic.
Yeah, he looks great. Good park to pitch in, really good matchup. The $10,100 price tag is certainly reasonable on DraftKings as well. 11.3 on FanDuel. I don't have an issue there, but it's at least closer to correct. The only thing, I guess, negative to mention with Burns is that even though $10,100 is cheaper than he should be, there are so many just mispriced high upside pitchers on DraftKings. I think that's why you're only seeing him get 33% ownership. If Lucas Giolito was $8,800 like he should be, and if Spencer Strider was $10,300 like he should be, then you'd be getting a 10-1 Burns at like 60% ownership against the Pirates. But because obviously you can only roster 2 pitchers on DraftKings, there's only so much that can go to Burns until you're saying, oh well, then I'm not playing Giolito, or I'm not playing Strider, or I'm not playing Gausman, or I'm not playing Javier. Like there's so many good high upside pitchers that are all across the board pretty much underpriced that it's just going to flatten out that ownership a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's just compare them quickly. Burns over DeGrom.
Yes.
I already know what you're laughing at.
Yeah.
We're on the same page there. Pirates bats. I don't really see the justification here.
No, me neither. It's just a brutal matchup against Burns. It's a brutal lineup.
If the Pirates are the team that like wins today's slate, I'm just going to not win. It's that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Brewers, on the other hand, 4th in top stack, 4th in aggregate ownership. I also had them 4th. I don't have much else to say there. Christian Yelich pulling the most ownership on the team. Leadoff spot, 16% owned. Certainly a viable cash option on a slate like this. I'm actually not getting to a ton of Brewers right now. Where do you want to go in terms of Milwaukee?
I mean, I think they look good, and I also think that they offer some value because there are a few bats that are expensive. Adames at 5,100, Tellez is up to 4,800, Renfroe's at 5K. But outside of that, it's really not bad. McCutchen at 4,300, Yelich at 46, Urias at 4K flat, a cheap Omar Narvaez at 2,700. Wong offers some value. So I think they are a pretty good combination of value and just being in a good spot. The only thing that sucks is that they are in Pittsburgh, so it's not great for power, but still a 4.8 implied run total. Wilson has struggled this year in a small sample. 155 expected ISO to righties, 193 to lefties. If you go back to last year, 171 expected ISO to righties, 225 to lefties. So I do think that it's a good spot for the Brewers. The park does downgrade them a bit, though.
Alrighty. Yelich for cash seem reasonable to you?
Sure. Like he's just one of those guys, like he's in the mix where if I end up with Christian Yelich and cash, then fine. But I'm not looking at him saying like, oh yeah, I'll definitely have him.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a ton of guys that we're going to get to other than like the tippy top star type players, the judges and stuff where it's this guy kind of has to be there because of it. But just, based on where I have him, based on what I'm seeing for the ownership, leadoff spot, on the road, those are all things that I think play very well in terms of a cash perspective. So I don't think we can mention anything for the Pirates. I don't think you want to mention anything for Bryce Wilson. So I'm good to move on if you are.
Yep.
Yankees and Mariners. Yankees 4.8 run implied total. Mariners 3.8. Jamison Taillon for New York. Logan Gilbert going for Seattle. Neither one of these guys pulling any ownership. They're not all that interesting to me. Yankees offense obviously good. Seattle's offense not as good, but good enough. A little bit different based on injuries right now. Do you see yourself getting to Taillon or Gilbert?
No. The way I kind of described it this morning is that I think the broken pitcher pricing on DraftKings makes it really tough to get to these guys unless you're just actively looking for a really low-owned pitcher in one particular lineup. Because when you look at their salaries, they're pretty much where they should be. Jamison Taillon at 8,500 is fine. 9,300 for Gilbert's skill set is fine. But obviously he does have a very difficult matchup against the Yankees. But then you think about where other people are priced, and if you can say, sure, Spencer Strider is getting 30 times the ownership of Jamison Taillon, and that's a huge gap. But you're not even talking about relatively similar pitchers in terms of DFS upside. Strider's strikeout percentage is like 15 points higher than Jamison Taillon's this year. So it's tough to really want to make that pivot outside of very specific lineups. And the same thing goes for Gilbert when he's more expensive than Strider and he's more expensive than Javier and he's only $800 less than Corbin Burns against the Pirates. It just becomes really, really difficult to want to get that.
Yeah, I got like 4% of Taillon on my dummy crunch. Like that. He's not a priority in any way, just showed up a little bit, nothing too crazy. I'm not looking to try to get to any sort of aggressive amount here. I guess the best thing that we would want to do here is talk about the Yankees, just given their top stack odds in relationship to the Seattle stack odds. These guys they're kind of like inverse teams today. Yankees are 5th in top stack, very not great value. The Mariners aren't the best top stack odds, much better value. They're actually 5th in top value. So let's start with the Yankees. 5th in top stack, as I mentioned, 13th in ownership. But that ownership is essentially only Aaron Judge at 15%. So put a checkbox next to Aaron Judge's name if you're looking to play him in any cash scenario. But talk to me a little bit about what you want to do with this Yankees stack, who I think actually plays a little bit today.
Yeah, I mean, they're low owned, and that's always pretty appealing. I actually think they look a little bit better on FanDuel than they do DraftKings. I mentioned them in my top stacks video or my tournament plays video earlier. And the reason I think they look a little bit better, it's kind of the same thing on both sites. You know, they're a relatively low probability play with a massive ceiling and not much ownership. But on FanDuel, if you look at the teams ahead of them in top stacks tool, a lot of those teams are getting ownership because they're pretty cheap and you can get to them easily. Whereas on DraftKings, a lot of the teams ahead of the Yankees are projected to be under-owned for one reason or another. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult to push the Yankees up. But, you know, it's never a bad team to get to at low ownership. I think that goes without saying. They're really good. It is a tough matchup against Gilbert. 23.5% strikeout percentage for Gilbert this year. A little below 1 home run per 9 innings, 3.65 xFIP. So you're not really playing the matchup so much as you're just saying, you know, the Yankees are the best or one of the best offenses in baseball. They have an insane amount of power. Even against a pitcher as good as Gilbert, there's going to be some games where they just hit 4 home runs.
What about the Seattle side for you? Does the value stand out? Just, you know, this is basically a free stack for all intents and purposes today, but, you know, missing hitters, Tyon's fine. I just got 3.8 run implied totals, not very good. I don't see myself getting to a ton of Seattle.
I do kind of like Seattle here. Tyon's had some issues with left-handed power, and this is a really nice upgrade for the Seattle bats. This year, since the start of last year, he's allowed a 194 expected ISO to lefties. This year, he's at 188. So I don't know how much Seattle I actually get to, but I do at least like the idea of Jesse Winker in particular at 3,200. But Adam Frazier leading off at 2,800 with second base outfield eligibility. Santana's cheap. J.P. Crawford, left-handed hitting shortstop at 3,800. Cal Raleigh has power as a catcher. So you do get a pretty left-handed heavy lineup with some power going against a pitcher that has had issues with it this year in Yankee Stadium with the short porch and right. So that is kind of interesting to me.
Okay. I actually did have more of Seattle on my crunch than I did of the Yankees, but I didn't really have a ton of either side of this one. So
yeah, like I could easily see them being a team, you know, with being such a big slate where I just end up not really getting there. But I can at least like articulate why I will be happy if I do get to Seattle.
Okay. Anything else here?
No.
Tab was
just
in the
to
wrong.
reiterate, Jesse Winker, I really like.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
Optioning CJ Abrams to AAA.
Why are they doing that?
Yeah, like why not just let him play in the majors? Like, what's the point?
No telling.
Like he's already proven he's good enough for AAA.
Fair. MLB Live Before Lock coming out. Sorry, I got caught up like trying to catch up on tweets that were coming in, and like I saw the Boyd tweet and everything. There's just too much going on today. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next at 6 p.m. So stick around. Don't leave this stream. You'll get Greg. You'll get Eric. They will take you all the way up until 7:05. Free content for today. MLB DK Night Owl tool is free again. We want you guys to check that out. That's going to put all of the data in one spot. I think it's a much better visual experience for you guys. So let us know how you feel there. And if you're playing golf this week, Wyndham Championship, PGA ownership is free. Guardians and Diamondbacks. 4-run implied total for Cleveland. 3.6 for the Diamondbacks. Tristan McKenzie, Zach Gallen, McKenzie, 6% owned, 9,800. Third most expensive pitcher on today's slate. Gallen not pulling any ownership at 8K. How do you feel about my boy Tristan McKenzie today?
Kind of the same way I did last time, where I think he's a good play if you're just talking about Tristan McKenzie, the pitcher facing the Arizona Diamondbacks. Yeah. I have a really difficult time trying to figure out how I would prioritize him when he's $300 less than Burns, when he's $1,600 more than Strider, when he's more than Gausman. You know, I think he works as a pivot in some individual lineups, but he's like correctly priced, if not a bit expensive, while most of the good pitchers on this slate are wildly underpriced.
This is not going to be one of those days where I'm like aggressively advocating for Tristan McKenzie. He's the meat in a sandwich that is just like where the bread is just better.
Right.
Like, so I can't say that I would want to get to him more than Burns. I can't say that I would want to get to him more than Gossman. Do I think he's probably slightly under-owned at 6%? Yes. I just don't know how actionable that ends up being. So if you get to Tristan McKenzie, don't freak out. Don't be mad about it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but there are two better options, one above him and one below him.
Yeah, the problem really, it's just, and that's, just in that price range. Then you're talking about there's better values too.
Sure.
It kind of comes down to, we'll talk about, a lot of times we'll talk about ownership, just, referring to two different players. And, Kevin Gausman, for example, getting 33%, Tristan McKenzie getting 5%. The math works out there where, he's a viable pivot off of Gausman. But the problem is you don't just need him to be Gausman. You need him to beat DeGrom and Javier and Strider and Burns and, be far and away better than Giolito at 6,800. So it ends up being such a low probability play that it's tough to get to outside of, just random lineups here and there.
Per William Ross in chat, it is Tristan McKenzie's birthday today. Does that change your mind at all?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes. Because I know for sure the thing that I want to do most on my birthday is go to work.
Yeah.
I'd play like shit. Just like, get me out of here. Can I take a quick shower, get out, and go about my night? See you guys. Meet me at the restaurant. I'll be showered up. It'll be the 4th.
Arcathelza thinks the Red Sox are going to get after Valdez today, but Valdez should get the win. That would be the first time a pitcher not pitching gets either lit up or gets a win.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there. Gallen, anything here? I don't see it.
Same thing I just said about McKenzie, but talking about an 8K pitcher, basically. He's good. 23.5% strikeout percentage, 3.78 xFIP. By comparison, the guy $300 more expensive than him has a 36.4% strikeout percentage and 2.57 xFIP. You're not talking about a slight margin in gap of talent between him and Strider, and that's not even to mention that Giolito is less expensive with a higher strikeout percentage and a similar xFIP. Like, it's just so difficult to get to any pitcher that is actually correctly priced today.
Very, very true. And I think it's kind of difficult to get to either one of these teams, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. Guardians are 17th in ownership. Diamondbacks are 20th. They don't rank very well in terms of our top stack tool. I'm a little bit more optimistic about both sides of this, but not enough to get either one of these teams in the top 10 of my top stack tools. So outside of like getting Jose Ramirez or like getting an actual talented bat, I don't anticipate being in this game at all.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough game to get to because, McKenzie and Gallen are both good enough. Jose Ramirez obviously is always playable, but Cleveland just doesn't look like any sort of a priority here. McKenzie does give up some power, but this is a spot where like a 6 to 8 game slate, I'd be kind of interested in guys like Walker, Marte, Alec Thomas, but on a slate of this size, I just have a hard time thinking I'm going to get much of it.
Okay, we're on the same page. Just too difficult. There's too many other good options. I mean, 4-run implied total for Cleveland is not high, and there are a bunch in like the high 4s, low 5s. So, all right. Rays and Jays, 3.3 run implied total for the Rays, 3.9 for the Jays. Drew Rasmussen going for Tampa. Kevin Gausman going for Toronto. Gausman, the most owned pitcher on the slate, or essentially tied with Burns. He's 9,500. It's a great strikeout matchup. Difficult matchup just sort of in general because Tampa's bats are good. Talk to me about how you feel about Kevin Gausman, and then rank him in terms of your love for him in relationship to Burns.
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks good here as well. You're getting a good park in Tampa Bay. You're getting a relatively weak Tampa lineup with Franco and Kiermaier and Zunino all out. Arozarena, Lau, Choi, those guys are fine. But, you have Paredes hitting third, who he's hit, for power this year, but it's not like he's supposed to be a particularly good hitter. Siri coming over from Houston hitting 5th, David Peralta hitting 6th. He's obviously had a huge drop off over the last couple of years. It's just a pretty mediocre lineup for Tampa Bay in a good pitcher's park. Gausman is a really good pitcher, 27.9% strikeout percentage, 2.76 xFIP this year, basically the same xFIP as Burns, about 4 points lower or 5 points lower in strikeout percentage. So he looks good. He's getting about the same ownership as Burns. I think between the two, I'd probably give a slight edge to Burns, but it's not by much. I think Gausman looks like just another one of the top pitcher plays.
All righty. I give the slight edge to Burns, but I don't have I'm not going to go too crazy over it. They're both good options. Like I've got Burns. Maybe it's a little bit more than a slight edge for Burns, but either way, clearly two of the best options you're going to get to today.
Yep.
And we'll hash out pitching cash options as we move forward, but there are a couple. If you get Burns, Gausman, I don't think that's crazy. It's probably like Burns, Strider, but those combinations are all going to look relatively similar. Anything for Drew Rasmussen? I don't think so.
No, I mean, I think he's a decent enough real life pitcher, but about a 20% strikeout percentage this year, 20.5%, 3.7 xFIP, tough matchup against Toronto. I just can't make any argument for why I would like him on this slate.
Can you make any argument for why you would like either one of these teams from a bats perspective?
Not really. I mean, Toronto, the argument is just that it's Toronto and they're really good, but you do have a bit of a watered down lineup here too. No George Springer. So Gurriel leading off. I feel like they're missing somebody else too, but maybe that's just throwing me off enough that they're not. And they're facing, a pitcher in Rasmussen that is solid in a tough park to hit. So, if you want to stack Toronto just simply because they're Toronto, that I think is fine. But there's nothing about the matchup that I'm going to point to and say like it's a good spot.
Dude, I opened my office door and now I've closed it. The smell in my house is exceptional. Wife's making meatballs. All I smell is like garlic and sauce and it's just permeating everything in this house right now. I feel like I'm going to float down the steps like a cartoon. I'm salivating. It's really, really smells delicious. So cannot wait to eat that. Don't have any cash options really in this game that I see. Nope. Other than just utter talent, the Guerreros and Kirks of the world, but doesn't appear that those are going to be even priorities.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if I got to anyone from this game in cash. Gausman, the slight exception, but I assume I'm just going to be going Burns and Strider most likely.
Yeah, okay. Same page.
Arcathelza thinks that Javier and Valdez are like the same pitcher, which is just unbelievably wrong.
I don't know how to land on that one.
So one of them gets strikeouts and gives up home runs. One of them doesn't get strikeouts and gets every ball hit straight into the ground. And they're the same.
Yeah, that's like a very, very different profile. We're talking about someone with like such dramatically different strikeout stuff. Yeah, it's probably probably 3+ strikeouts difference in a given game.
So I don't know off the top of my head what Valdez was at, but 22% strikeout percentage for Valdez this year, 32% for Javier, 0.42 home runs per 9 for Valdez, 1.3 for Javier.
There it is. All right, I think we got a lot to talk about here. Braves and Phillies, 5.1 run implied total for the Braves, 3.4 for the Phillies. Spencer Strider and I believe Nick Nelson is the opener for Philly. Do we have a long man there that you've seen?
I think it's supposed to be Appel, okay. However you pronounce his name. I forgot.
Appel. It is Appel. I forgot that. Spencer Strider, this is the guy that we need to talk about here. 8,300 for today going up against Philadelphia, 29% owned. I'll ask you multiple questions. One, are you surprised that Strider isn't more owned than this, or is that just a function of the slate size? Two, is Spencer Strider your favorite pitcher today?
It's a function of the slate size and the quality of pitchers and the fact that there are multiple mispriced pitchers. I'm still surprised he's not getting more ownership. I think it's difficult between him and Burns to say which one is my favorite, but that $8,300 price tag just looks amazing. He's really cheap on FanDuel as well. You obviously weren't on the show this morning, but to get Arcathelza's take on Astros pitchers off the hook, the probably craziest thing I've seen in chat for sure all day and probably ever is that King of Smack thinks that 8,300 is too expensive for Spencer Strider and that he is like a 7K pitcher.
What?
The guy has a 36.4% strikeout percentage and a 2.57 xFIP as a starter this year. He's fully stretched out. There's no workload issues. This guy should be north of $10,000. If you were wondering the reasoning on why he's too expensive at $8,300 is if he pitches poorly, then he's not going to have been a good play. So I think maybe we should just be capping all pitcher salaries at like $6K.
I don't understand how you could ever land on that. Like, even if you just want to scout him based on his current stat line, like, he should be more expensive by far. But it's not like he didn't have a pedigree coming into this either. Number 2 prospect on Fangraphs for the Braves coming into this with a as good as it gets fastball, 80 out of 80.
Yeah, it's not like this guy just appeared and nobody expected him to be good. He didn't spend any time at AAA, so he was kind of a question mark when he came up. But in his 63 innings at AA last year, he had struck out 35.5% of hitters. It's not like he came out of nowhere. So, there's no reason at this price tag. And he's, I don't remember if I mentioned it, but he's cheap on FanDuel as well, which really stands out because like Burns is more expensive there.
Yeah.
At this price tag, he can give up several runs and he's still going to be fine because he's going to strike out so many guys. And if he doesn't give up runs, you're kind of going to have him.
Yeah. So I have Strider as the 3rd highest projected guy today. I have him a 10th of a point actually ahead of Kevin Gausman. And I don't feel bad about that at all. I cannot imagine having a conclusion that he should be cheaper than this.
Arcathels is now mad that we're twisting his words because I've repeated the exact words that he said.
Yeah. It's fair.
Strider, I mean, it's just obviously he can have a bad game, but if you're looking at an $8,300 Spencer Strider and saying like that's not like it's not a great price or he's not a clear top play, you should never like a pitcher ever on any slate.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, if you think that his downside here is the problem at that price tag, I don't know how you ever looked at anybody and been like, that's the guy that I should have today.
Right. It's not like we're talking about some pitcher that gets lit up but also gets strikeouts or something. He's just been great across the board. He has the best xFIP on the slate. He has the best strikeout percentage. His strikeout percentage is like 4 points higher than Corbin Burns this year. 8.8% walk percentage is mildly high, but it's not like it's a problem. Giving up less than 1 home run per 9. If you want to look at his expected numbers this year, he's allowed to right-handed hitters an ISO of 0.95, expected ISO 0.88, to lefties actual ISO allowed 0.86, expected ISO 135, 274 expected WOBA to lefties, 245 to righties. He's facing a Philadelphia team that still doesn't have Bryce Harper. It's just a really easy play at this price.
Yes, it is. Hit that like button, by the way. Let's get that number north of 100. I want to run this number up as high as we can before we toss this one over to the Live Before Lock crew. Braves 2nd in our top stack odds, 5th in aggregate ownership. But that doesn't really tell the whole story because it's essentially just Acuna getting any legitimate ownership. I think it's pretty safe to say that Ronald Acuna is one of your cash game outfielders tonight. 5,100, pulling 23% ownership. Just feels like that's going to have to be one of the guys that you're getting to. But I would also like to get to the Braves pretty aggressively. They are my 2nd most exposed team today. So I am locking and loading quite a bit of the NL East. What do you want to do with Atlanta?
I want to roster them. I mean, it's not anytime you get a bullpen game, it's not super appealing, but I'm expecting that you're going to see, a couple innings at least out of Mark Appel. It's just a bunch of guys that I'm not confident in their abilities as pitchers, and the Braves obviously have a lot of power in their lineup. It's another team where at the top, they're relatively expensive. Everybody 1 through 4 is north of 5K. William Contreras hitting 6th is also north of 5K. Michael Harris hitting 9th is nearly 5K. But you do get a little bit of value with Rosario, Ozuna, and Arcia that can balance that out. But then also, it's just a slate where if you want to pay up for the Braves, it's not going to be that difficult because you can just pair like Spencer Strider and Lucas Giolito and spend 15K at pitcher while getting 2 of the top 5 strikeout guys on the slate. So it's just a good stack, a high upside spot to get to.
I don't think Acuna will be that high owned, but Riley will. We've got Acuna at 23 and Riley at 7.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you guys if you've been listening to the show for the past 15 minutes where that take came from.
He's $600 more than Acuna. Like, why would... There's 3 outfield spots and 1 third base spot. Like, why would Riley be more popular than Acuna?
Yeah. Unless we maybe, sorry. I might be wrong. I think they've added 2 additional third base spots to every lineup. You didn't see the change that DraftKings put out?
Right. I mean, and Acuna is like the cheapest that he'll ever be, except for the other day when he was 4,900.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I don't know what to do here. So yeah, Mets and Braves are my top 2 stacks, at least as of this moment. I get the sense they'll be pretty highly ranked as I get closer to lock, but I'm going to get my Braves today, and I'm going to get Strider today. So I assume that's going to be the mother of all jinxes, and they're just going to get bent over by Philly. You're not going to the Phillies, correct?
No, I just can't. I can't like even come up with some reason why I would want to.
It's incredible. Bet Sean V would be on my side. Yeah, that's a ringing endorsement I would want. Oh my God. Hip hop studies. That could not
Those are
mean
just
less.
words.
Yeah. That is not a meaningful thing. Anything else here? Braves or Phillies?
Oh, Brett Phillips to the Orioles. I was actually hoping that would happen.
Dude, I immediately pictured Brandon Phillips, and I was like, he's still in the league?
No.
He's got to be 50.
We can use Brett Phillips to replace Jorge Lopez.
How old is Brandon Phillips at this point? 41. He's younger than I thought he was going to be, that's for sure. From Raleigh. That's fun. Didn't know that. Partial owner of the Lexington Legends.
Talking about Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we got Phillips. We got another guy that's easy to root for. Obviously not as good as Mancini, but Brandon Phillips is not still playing.
He might be playing in the Atlantic League of the team that he owns, I think.
Yeah, he's independently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not still playing. Twins and Tigers. 5.2 run implied total for the Twins. 3.9 for the Tigers. Whoa, he dates Jade Cargill? That's kind of crazy. Chris Archer going for Minnesota. Matt Manning going for the Tigers. Are you going to roster either one of these guys? My assumption is no.
No. That's kind of all I have to say.
Yeah,
I mean, the Tigers are really bad, but Chris Archer is $100 less than Lucas Giolito. Just to compare their numbers this year. Chris Archer, 18% strikeout percentage, 12% walk percentage, 5.07 xFIP, 1.17 home runs per 9. Giolito, 25.8% strikeout percentage, so 7.5 points higher. 8.6% walk percentage, so 4 points lower. 3.75 xFIP is 1.25 runs better. 1.68 home runs per 9 is higher than Archer. But outside of that, just not remotely similar.
Correct. We got a lot to talk about here. So, third in top stack, first in aggregate ownership. This is where the most ownership is going today, and that is the Minnesota Twins. They were second in my top stack tool, so I understand the appeal for sure. At the same time, I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to get all the way up to the public for today, mostly because the public is balanced here. This isn't just like 2 guys pulling a ton of ownership. It's kind of coming into most of the lineup. What do you think you're doing with Minnesota?
The ownership's a little concerning, but also on a slate of this size, it's not as big a deal. Polanco, Buxton, Gordon, Correa, all projected to get double-digit ownership, which I think is fine. Gordon's 2,100. He's been hitting the ball hard all season long. It's a good matchup against Manning. Correa is one of the better shortstop options. Buxton is obviously a top-end option. Polanco is a good option. So I do like Minnesota, but I do think that there's a couple of teams with similar chances of success that just aren't pulling quite the same ownership.
Yeah, I came in lighter on the dummy crunch that I had. I had about half the field. They were still like, my 5th or 6th most exposed team, but at the same time, if everybody's going to be around 14, I'm going to get a little bit less than that. So I don't have much to say for the Twins here, other than like clearly if you get them, you're probably like the Twins make for a decent. If you're going to a chalky twin stack, that's a spot where like Tristan McKenzie has a little bit more appeal. Agreed? Disagreed?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who the hell Anderson is. Oh, Tyler. Okay. I just saw Blitz keep asking Strider or Anderson, and then somebody else replied Strider over Anderson. I couldn't even figure out who they're talking about. Strider over Anderson, yeah.
Yes, Anderson is not an answer to any questions today, other than who's starting.
Right.
Let's hit DFix super chat quickly. Do you use standard deviation as a factor for cash decisions? No.
Nope.
Twins bats for Twins bats for cash. This is where I think we're going to start looking at a couple options.
Yeah, any of Correa, Buxton, Polanco, Gordon potentially. Although I assume if you need a $2,100 outfielder, I assume you're going to Victor Reyes on the other side.
Yeah, I was going to say Kirilloff potentially too at 2,800 if like you need one cheap outfielder.
Pretty sure he's on the injured list.
Oh, is he not in the lineup today?
Yeah, he was placed on the injured list like an hour ago.
That'll do it. Don't think I've updated them. Let's see. Minnesota. What's the timestamp on Twins lineup? Yep. I have not touched the Twins lineup yet. So that makes sense. So ignore me about Kirilloff. Bang. Tigers bats, generally speaking, always a value. Fourth in our top value metric. Second in mine. They are eighth in aggregate ownership. Most of that going to Victor Reyes. Any value to you getting on the opposite side of Archer? Actually, in a weird way, based on their implied total, this is like one of the better spots you're going to get for the Tigers.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that this isn't a slate where you need more in savings. If pitcher pricing were remotely correct, the Tigers would be really useful. As is, you're kind of going to be in a situation where like you actually need the Tigers to outscore these other better teams as opposed to just being like good values. But individually, I think there are some bats to get to. Victor Reyes, I had already sort of mentioned, 2,100, assuming he's batting second, that's going to look like a good value. Had him in cash last night. Wouldn't be surprised at all if I had him again tonight. Archer this year, 179 expected ISO to lefties, 157 to righties. Riley Green's up to 4,100. He's still one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. You can still play him there, but clearly not the same glaring value that he was when he first came up.
Jordan Klein, producer extraordinaire, giving me the super chat that we already asked on the show and answered. So fantastic work there, buddy.
Still distracted by my shirt.
Distracted is one word. Yeah, Reyes for cash, certainly playable at 2,100. I don't have much else to say here for Detroit. Did I get them? Should I say more about Detroit? I did not, so I should not. Anything else? Twins and Tigers?
Nope.
All righty then. Time to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Odds Shopper, the easiest read that I will ever do on any of these shows. It's a free product that we're offering to you guys. It's not going to cost you a single cent, and I believe it provides more utility than just about anything else you are going to find. If you're just looking to simply bet on games and you have the ability to do so in a legal state, you can shop for lines and get the best number. Right away, that is going to help you out without question. There's never going to be a downside to getting the best line that you can find, and you should be looking to do that every single time that you're putting in a bet. But it's not just there, too. If we want to head over to the player props side of this one, and I know it's up on the screen right now, not only are we breaking down every single player prop that's available at all of these books, but we're showing you our projection for that prop. We're showing you the expected ROI for that prop. We're showing you the expected win rate as well. All of this information is at your fingertips. And as I mentioned before, it costs you $0 to use this tool. You just have to sign up using an email address. I don't think that's a very big ask for the amount of help that it's going to provide you guys. So please go to Odds Shopper. I think it is going to absolutely help you with whatever you're doing on the sports betting side. We've got like parlay builders, ARB tools, all kinds of good stuff. Check it all out now. And if you're not in a legal state, that doesn't mean that this has no utility for you. One, it allows you to become familiar with it when your state inevitably becomes a legal betting state. Two, from a player prop perspective, some of that information can help you out in your DFS decisions. So take a look at it, get the advantage, get out in front of the books, save some of the money, keep it in your pocket, go use Odds Shopper.
Syndergaard pursuit is down to 2 finalists, Jays and Phillies.
I don't care what he does.
Well, I mean, he's pitching tonight, so.
Huh?
He's pitching tonight.
Oh, yeah, well, that's supposedly fair. Yeah, we'll know in 25 minutes whether or not he's pitching tonight. Okay. Let's go Cardinals and Cubs. 4.7 run implied total for the Cubs. Sorry, for the Cardinals, 3.7 for the Cubs. Adam Wainwright and Keegan Thompson. Wainwright pulling a little bit of ownership. He's 7,500. He's got 7% ownership. I think that's probably about right. Maybe it should be a little bit higher, but at the same time, I just think Giolito is a better option at a slightly lower price. Do you like Wainwright at all here?
Yeah, I actually thought he was kind of one of the more difficult pitchers to talk about this morning in terms of like explaining what I think about him, because I do think it's a good spot. I think he's a good pitcher. I think he's a good play at this price, underpriced at 7,500. Right now, Contreras and Happ are still on the Cubs and in the Cubs lineup. There is some chance that in the next 25 minutes, one or both of those guys are no longer on Chicago, which would make the lineup look better for Wainwright. But even if they are in, he's 7,500 and he's just a better pitcher than that. But he has a 19.5% strikeout percentage this year to go with his 3.82 xFIP. So normally, if you throw Wainwright out there at 7,500 against a Cubs team that has plenty of strikeouts, you're just going to say like, oh, this is one of the more clear-cut SP2 options on the slate. But the fact that he's only $800 less expensive than Strider and he's $800 more expensive than Giolito just makes it really difficult to argue that he's a priority instead of just like a guy that's going to end up in some lineups because he also does project as a good value.
I don't know if you said this before. Hosmer to the Red Sox?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I mentioned him when I said I had no idea what the Red Sox were doing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like they traded Vasquez, but then they brought in Pham and Hosmer. I don't really know. Xander Bogaerts said that he doesn't know what they're doing, that it seems like Christian Vasquez left the building and nobody returned.
Oh, man, that's great. I don't think that I need to ask you anything about Keegan Thompson.
No, he's an okay real-life pitcher, but just not somebody that I'm getting to on this slate. One other thing I did want to mention with Wainwright, FanDuel specific, since it is one pitcher, he's $200, if I remember correctly, more expensive than Spencer Strider. Not remotely comparable in terms of upside, strikeout percentage, anything like that. But if you do have a chalkier lineup on FanDuel in terms of stacks, that is one pretty easy spot where you can pivot in that individual lineup and just save, get a fraction of the ownership.
How are you feeling about Cardinals bats here? 6th in our top stack tool, 10th in ownership. That's about where I have them right now. I just think they look good, not great. Not the best park.
Yeah, they're just another one of the many teams that's sort of just in the middle of the pack in terms of top stack percentage here. I do like that they're getting less ownership than a team like the Brewers or the Twins, who, are maybe a little bit more likely to succeed, but I don't think deserve 2 times the ownership or anything like that. One thing that I do like specifically about the Cardinals is that if you look at the ownership that is coming to their team, it's not really going to the best players. Like, not that any of them are getting a lot of ownership, but Nolan Gorman leads the way at 8%. And I'm not taking anything away from him. 3,200 at second base. He looks good, and he's batting second. Like, he looks like a very good play. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's your cash game second baseman. But Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt in particular, Arenado is 5,300 at third base, getting 2% ownership. Goldschmidt, 5,900 at first base, getting 1% ownership. They're obviously not the best values because of those price tags, but because the pitching pricing is so soft, I think you can still get to them. And Keegan Thompson has, while he's been solid this year, he has allowed a 176 expected ISO to righties this year compared to only 102 to lefties. Getting a stack like the Cardinals, where we know it's a good offense, and then getting the best hitters in that offense at low ownership is always pretty appealing.
Horn bots are going to help you find love if you're interested.
Yeah. We had a pretty long conversation about that before we went to the airport the other day.
I wonder if those porn bots can see your shirt. Anything going on the Cubs side of this one for you?
No, not particularly. I hadn't updated ownership, but Gorman's up to 11%. Again, I think that's fine. Paul DeJong wasn't in ownership projections before. He's the 7%, good value. But everything I was just saying about Arenado and Goldschmidt still applies.
Rangers and Orioles, 4.5 run implied total for the Rangers, 4.2 for the Orioles. Spencer Howard and Jordan Lyles going here. Neither guy getting any ownership. I don't think this is a spot that we're going to be getting to all that much pitching.
I don't think so either. There have certainly been slates where Howard and or Lyles are solid value options because you just don't have a lot of value pitching, but this isn't one of them.
All righty. Now hitting, different story. Rangers currently 3rd in ownership. They are 12th in our top stack tool, but 2nd in top value. I actually have them a little bit higher in terms of top stack, but nothing too crazy. I think I could see why the ownership is coming in. And the ownership is coming into Semien and Seager primarily in those top two spots. Very easy to roster, great positions. So I understand why it's happening. For right now, I'll probably be relatively neutral to Texas. How do you feel about them?
Kind of surprised that their top stack percentage isn't a little bit higher, but then again, I guess it's just they're just lumped into that mid-range group. Like they're at 4.2% right now. There's not really a difference between that, 4.6 or 4.7. So it
Yeah,
seems
so like I have them 0.6 of a percentage point higher, but it's 6 ranked point, or like there's 6 ranking spots ahead. So like it's
right.
just all smushed together.
Right, exactly. But they are getting ownership, like you said, and I think it's deserved. Seager looks like one of the better shortstop options. Semien looks like one of the better shortstop and/or second base options. Then it falls off a little bit. 3,200 for Nate Lowe, I think, looks good. Cole Calhoun is actually 2K. That's an absurd salary on Cole Calhoun,
It
$2,000.
is.
So, like, this is a team that you can get to. They look like really good values. There's nobody in this lineup above 3,200 with the exception of Semien and Seager. Lyles is just kind of a guy. He's not like a total gas can, but he's also not great. 152 expected ISO to righties, 223 to lefties. So you are mostly seeking out left-handed power, which again gives you Seager. Tavares is 3,100. He'll be hitting left-handed. Lowe is left-handed. Calhoun's left-handed. So yeah, I mean, I like Texas here, even though they are getting some ownership. It is mostly just going to Semien and Seager.
All righty. Semien and Seager are certainly in like a conversation for potential cash options. Wouldn't be crazy if you got to one or two of them, but not necessarily like major priorities.
Agreed.
Okay. Anything for your O's, 8th in top stack, 12th in ownership. Not a huge gap between the top stack odds of both of these teams. Do you get to your Baltimore Orioles?
Baltimore made it into my top tournament plays video for both DraftKings and FanDuel because they're just kind of getting left behind, even though they are they're still in the mix with all these other teams around a 5% top stack percentage, only 4% aggregate ownership. And I get it because the guys that you really want to get to from Baltimore are relatively expensive, with the exception of Mountcastle and Hayes. But talking specifically about Mullins, Rutschman, and Santander, those guys are expensive. There's definitely some sticker shock there, given how cheap they've been all season long. But you can also balance that out when you have a $2,900 Mountcastle, $3,800 Hayes. Odor is really cheap. Terran Vavra's minimum salary. Mateo's $3,600. Not a great hitter, but stealing pretty much anytime he gets on base. And Spencer Howard's been absolute garbage this year, really forever in the majors. Relatively small sample with the Rangers this year, but 250 expected ISO to righties, 208 to lefties. If you go back to last year, 194 to righties, 164 to lefties. Since the start of 2020, 178 to lefties, 177 to righties. It's, I think, a pretty good spot to get to Baltimore, and I don't think that the price tags on Mullins, Rutschman, and Santander make it that much more difficult.
Okay. I don't have anything really to touch on for Baltimore. I'm certainly going to have some. They look good, not great, and I would be happy to get on the opposite side of Howard, that's for sure. Astros and Red Sox. Christian Javier going for Houston, Cutter Crawford for Boston. Javier, another one of the pitchers that are actually pulling ownership, $400 more expensive than Strider, comparable ownership at this point. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's very much deserved. I like the idea of getting to Javier. I think the spot is totally fine. I did have about 25% when I ran my original crunch. So how do you feel about Javier? Let's sort of try to rank him now, because we've talked about every one of the main owned pitchers that are actually priced with real salaries. Giolito down at 6,800 is a different can of worms.
I like Javier here. Strikeout percentage is very similar to Burns, 32.6%. Walk percentage is higher. XFIP is about a run higher. He gives up more home runs per 9. He's not as good a pitcher, but the strikeouts are still there, and he's $1,400 less expensive. So I do like Javier. I am interested to see what the Red Sox lineup looks like. Devers, I believe, is expected back today, but we haven't gotten that lineup. We also don't know if they're going to trade anybody else. We don't know if Tommy Pham's going to be in the lineup, but Javier is going to look pretty good at his $8,700 salary on DraftKings. $9,700 on FanDuel is fine as well, because Burns is more expensive and all of that. What does stand out to me, and I just see it a little bit differently than the top pitchers tool, we have Strider and Javier with basically the same top 2 percentage, and then Strider getting a little bit more ownership, 31% to 27%. I don't think Spencer Strider and Christian Javier should be that close. I think Strider at $400 less expensive should be getting a little bit more ownership. And actually, in the most recent update, he did go up to 33. Javier went down to 26. But I think Javier is a good play. I think if the ownership between the two is going to be close, I'm probably just going to play more Strider.
I have Strider by 0.2 of a point plus the extra $400. So it's like, I don't want to say like pretty clearly Strider, but definitely the lean is Strider for me. That's not an indictment on Christian Javier either. Like, these are two of the 6 main priority options based on ownership and based on everything that I'm seeing. And certainly, 2 of the 5 better quote unquote pay up options that you're going to find.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have Javier and Strider almost identical in terms of projection.
Same.
Strider's just been the better pitcher this year, and Javier sort of has the same Luis Garcia type concerns where, he's throwing between 90 and 100 pitches in most starts. He did have that one where he threw 115 against the Yankees and struck out 13, but yeah, like he's a good play. I just like Strider a little bit more.
That'll work. Do you think there's any chance you're getting to Javier Strider?
Yeah, no reason not to.
No. From a cash perspective, or do you just think it's going to be Burns?
Probably Burns.
Okay.
I'm not like 100% sure on that, but I would guess Burns.
Figured as much. We can talk back.
Obviously, Javier Strider is fine.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wouldn't ask you that one.
Yeah, I was confused.
Astros 11th in aggregate ownership. Red Sox are 19th. Do you want to get to Houston here on the opposite side of Crawford? I don't get the sense that we're going to be going to Boston on the opposite side of Javier.
Yeah, I actually do like Houston here. Alex Bregman's back from his wife going into labor. No Trey Mancini in the lineup's disappointing because he was only 3,200, but you're only getting about 5% ownership coming into Houston, and the pricing here really isn't bad. Like, again, it would have been better if Mancini were in the lineup, but you have an expensive Alvarez, which is 100% totally deserved. Altuve is expensive at 5,500. Bregman's at 4,900. But Kyle Tucker at 4,500 is a very reasonable price tag. Yuli Gurriel's not a great power hitter, but he's 3,400 hitting second for Houston. Diaz is 3,500. So, across the board, this is kind of a middle of the road stack in terms of price tag. And obviously one of the best offenses in baseball going up against what is still a pretty unproven pitcher in Cutter Crawford.
Do you have any justification to going to Boston?
No. Looking at Javier so far this season, he has allowed a 121 expected ISO to lefties, 142 to righties. So he has gotten pretty unlucky in terms of power. 26.8% strikeout percentage against lefties, 41.6 against righties. There's nothing really I can point to there and say that I really like it. Obviously, if you get to some Devers, if he's in the lineup, that's fine, but doesn't look very good to me.
Best ball people, pay attention. Underdog has the Puppy 3 best ball contest, and we have got an offer for you. For $1, you'll get weekly access to our best ball kit through Sunday, August 7th. That's basically $9 off of the original weekly price. So if you do this and use the promo code PUPPY3, P-U-P-P-Y, and the number 3, you can see it on the screen right now. That package will include best ball and season-long fantasy football rankings, underdog daily draft rankings, our best ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, articles, and more. Use that promo code. Again, you'll get a week of our best ball draft kit access for $1. And then make sure you're subscribing to this channel and our best ball channel on YouTube so that you can get all the daily videos that we are pumping out there. And pumping out 135 likes right now. Hit that like button. It would help us out a ton if you would hit that like button, run it up a little bit more. We got 850 people in here right now. No reason we should only be in the 130s. 4 more games to go. Let's do this. White Sox and Royals, 4.7 run implied total for Chicago, 3.7 for the Royals. Lucas Giolito and wait, it's not actually Brady Singer, right?
Last I saw was Brad Keller. I don't know if Brad Keller will be on Kansas City in 10 minutes.
Let's just say it's Brad Keller, but who knows? I don't know what I've got in my sheet right now. Giolito, 20% owned right now at 6,800. This is, as far as I can tell, the premier pay down option.
Yeah. We had a conversation this morning where some people in chat said Giolito wasn't good, and Greg kind of agreed with them. But one, he's good. He has a 3.75 xFIP. It's like a run and a half better than his ERA. 349 BABIP is higher than than average. He has allowed some power this year, but beyond all that, he's $6,800. He's got a 25.8% strikeout percentage, fifth highest on the slate, 3.75 xFIP. As I mentioned, decent matchup against KC. They do have Perez back in their lineup. They have Witt back, so it's not the same horrible lineup that we were getting for a while when they were in Toronto or when they had a couple of guys injured. But it's still not a great lineup. And Giolito, again, just the main point here is $2,000, $1,500 to $2,000 cheaper than he should be. So whatever issue you have with Giolito that you're going to point to, whether it's completely made up in your head or actually exists, still can be written off by the fact that he is $6,800.
Mark Cathell's not getting the Giolito love, which again makes perfect sense to me. I have Giolito as the 7th best projected pitcher today, and he is the 18th most expensive pitcher. If you don't get that, that's probably your problem. Understanding the relationship between points and price, which has a little bit to do with being having inequality here, because sort of like that's the game within the game. Yeah, just play Giolito. He looks fantastic for today because he's 6,800. I think Giolito performs the exact same way if he's 9,800, and then I don't want to play him. It's ignore the price first. How do you feel about the guy when you see the price? Figure it out. I guess we're not really going to be talking about anybody from the Royals from a pitching perspective. If it is Brad Keller, are you interested?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Giolito 15 points. That's actually perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mild letdown.
Right. Like if you tell me he's getting 15 points, I probably wouldn't play him because I know there's going to be guys that score more. But you still certainly can win a tournament with 15 points from Giolito here.
Yep. Yeah, you're not dead by any means. You're still very live. White Sox bats, 16th in ownership. Royals bats, 6th in ownership. Are you just playing more lineups? Is that why they're 6th in ownership? Do you have a wife I don't know about?
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that it's the same thing that I do talk about a lot with KC, where they just have good players at valuable positions. Like Vinny Pasquantino is $2,100. That's just a really good value. But Salvador Perez is always going to be a top catcher. Bobby Witt Jr. is always going to be a top shortstop. So they're just naturally going to always get some ownership to this team. MJ Melendez, 4,400 catcher outfielder. And Giolito has had power issues this year. It's one thing to kind of just write those off entirely when you're talking about rostering him at $6,800 because I just don't really care. But when you're talking about Kansas City on the other side, 188 expected ISO to righties, only 148 to lefties this year. That does exist. So I can understand getting to Melendez, Witt, Perez, Pasquantino, Dozier, Merrifield, but I still don't anticipate really having a lot of Kansas City stacks.
Yeah, I'm much lower on Kansas City than what we're showing here. Not expecting to be anywhere near that ownership. What about the White Sox bats? Is there anything there for you? I don't really have anything.
They look okay. Like they're coming in a little bit under-owned, but Keller is not really a pitcher I'd like picking on either. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but he does do a good job limiting power. 124 expected ISO to lefties, 133 to righties. The White Sox haven't been very good offensively this year, but they do have a pretty good track record in their lineup with guys like Anderson, Jimenez, Vaughn, Abreu. But kind of just another middle of the road stack that probably is going a little bit under-owned.
Angels and A's going to be tough to talk about right now. Syndergaard is now officially not starting for the Angels. Cole Irvin on the opposite side is unowned. I didn't really have any interest in Syndergaard before this. I didn't have any interest in Cole Irvin before this. Do you like Irvin?
Yes and no. He's facing the Angels, which just means he can get 1 million strikeouts. He's not a strikeout pitcher himself. He only has a 17% strikeout percentage this year. But he doesn't walk a lot of guys. He doesn't give up a ton of power, 4.3 xFIP. Like he's an okay pitcher. He's got a very good strikeout matchup. He's not getting any ownership. So I like all of that. It's just he's more expensive than Lucas Giolito. He's in the same price range as Spencer Strider. There's been a lot of...
I'd rather have Wainwright.
Yeah, Wainwright is... I think Wainwright's kind of similar.
Sure.
I would say between the two of them, maybe that ownership gap's a little bit too big, especially if Contreras and Happ do remain in the Cubs lineup. But Still, neither one's getting much ownership, and they're kind of serving the same purpose. So, like, there's definitely been a lot of Cole Irvin love in chat, mostly from one person repeating himself for the last hour. But
Yeah.
um, I get it. It's just you have to like think about the entire slate, not just hone in on like one guy and say, "Oh, this is where I'm going to go," because like Cole Irvin can have a good game and still just be completely irrelevant. So it's not like you want to just like be jamming him in over these other clear, very, very good plays. So if you land on some Irvin, fine, good matchup, all of that. I think he's an okay pitcher, but it's also really hard for me to make some case where he should be getting tons of ownership on this slate.
I can confidently say that I don't really want any bit of the
Oh,
bats in this one. What happened?
Jordan Montgomery to the Cardinals
Hmm.
for Harrison Bader.
That's interesting. Not relevant for right now ish, but relevant just in general. The A's are the number one value stack. They're ninth in aggregate ownership. I don't really want to get to either side of this game from a bats perspective. Do you?
No. I mean, especially now that you lost the stolen base narrative against Syndergaard.
Yeah.
Irvin's not lights out against lefties or anything. Otani's certainly still fine. Taylor Ward's price tag looks pretty good, but in the context of this slate, there's just nothing that really stands out.
Agreed. Two more games to go here. Giants and Dodgers. 3.7 run implied total for the Giants, 4.2 for the Dodgers. Alex Wood and Tyler Anderson. Both guys about 4% owned. That seems about right to me. I'd probably be more likely to get to a little bit of Anderson, but I don't anticipate getting to much of either one of these guys. Do you like either of the pitchers?
Not on this slate. I do like both of the pitchers in terms of like real life pitching, but just tough. I mean, Alex Wood's a good pitcher. He's facing the Dodgers at the same price as Wainwright, at the same price as Irvin against the Angels, at a more expensive price tag than Giolito. You can see the issues with trying to get to him. And then Tyler Anderson is almost just like the $8,900 version of Tristan McKenzie, where if this slate were totally different and and Tyler Anderson were 8,900, there were certainly times where I would want to get to him, but I just have a really, really tough time on this particular slate because there's just so many alternatives.
I can't imagine that you're trying to get to the Giants bats today. They're not owned. They don't rank highly in our top stack tool, other than the fact that they're free, which they are every other night. Do you want to get to the Dodgers, who did some damage last night at basically no ownership? Are you going there today?
If you get there, sure, but I still just have a hard time targeting Alex Wood, especially with expensive bats too. Like you're going to be sacrificing some other stuff in your lineup most likely to get to the best Dodgers, and then also going up against a pitcher in Wood in a park that suppresses power. So they're just one of those teams. They're kind of like Toronto, I guess, where if I get to them just based on how good they are, that's fine. But I doubt that I'm really going to get much.
All righty. I don't have anything else to touch on for this one. I mean, the highest owned hitter is Trey Turner at 2.9%. I'm not going to get to the pitching. I'm not going to get to the hitting. This game's basically a cross off for me. Hopefully I get some Dodgers bats. Like I wouldn't mind it, but doesn't seem like a place I'm going.
Yeah. Same boat.
Final game, Padres and Rockies, 4.8 run implied total for the Pods, 3.7 for the Rockies. Reese Nair, I don't know how to say that. It doesn't matter. The opener for the Padres, don't play him. Jose Urena pitching for the Rockies, also don't play him. Did I get pitching correct here?
Yeah, pretty much. Kinnear went like 4 innings in his most recent start. He's like the Padres. Well, he was the Padres like sixth prospect. Now I guess he's like their second prospect. But yeah, no reason to be getting him today. And then definitely for the love of God, do not get the Jose Urena.
Definitely not asking you about the Rockies bats. We are not going that direction. Padres bats, on the other hand, 9th in our top stack, 7th in ownership. Most of that is Machado and to a lesser extent Cronenworth. Anything here for you for San Diego?
Yeah, I think the Padres look pretty good. Urena is not a very good pitcher. Obviously you're getting him outside of Coors Field, but Manny Machado looks good at the price I'm looking at is messed up, but Manny Machado looks good. Cronenworth looks good.
5,200.
Myers is sub 3K now, and he's back. So we don't know what the Padres lineup is yet. They had a doubleheader today, but whoever's in it, it's going to look pretty good against Urena and the Rockies.
All right, let's sum it all up. Favorite stacks?
Mets, Orioles, Cardinals, Rangers.
Okay. Favorite pitchers?
Chalk. Burns, Strider, Javier, Gossman, Giolito.
There we go, everybody. Keep your eyes peeled now. We have just hit the trade deadline, so we might get a couple of wonky things that are popping out. Make sure you're paying attention all the way up to 7:05 for any changes. Eric and Greg will definitely help you out there. Stick around on this stream. Hit the like button, all 1,000 of you. Hit the like button. Let's get it up over 200. Live Before Lock is next. Good luck, everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. I'm Eric Lindquist here on the Odd Shopper channel from Stokastic. Excited to be talking. We've got a lot of baseball, 16 games to get to. I'm going to break it down for you in just a minute here. That sounded like Outcast. That was amazing. But use promo code Lindy. Check that out. Risk-free bet. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a link below in the video description box. Take advantage of that. Get that risk-free bet up to $1,000. It doesn't get any better than that. And yeah, I'll talk about it later. But I know so much to get to, so little time. Let's get to the picks. Tuesday starts with game 1 between the Rockies and the Padres. They've got a doubleheader. But before we dig into this game, let's set some ground rules on today's show because there are going to be very, very few lines in certain spots to pull from. And that's because books are trigger shy to offer up odds in certain spots here at the moment. Because there's massive pieces that could be on the move here between now, between lock, between every game on the board, especially with some of these weaker teams that are looking to unload veterans in order to stockpile minor leaguers any which way that they can. So what does this mean for us from a betting perspective? Well, there's going to be a ton of parts, tons of moving parts, and that means lots of decisions where you have to upgrade something from a lean to a like or a lock. It's going to be completely on you in certain spots. Now, of course, I'll answer as many questions as I humanly possibly can on Twitter and in the comment section below here on YouTube. But this can be an extremely profitable slate if you react to news immediately. And it's not like the books don't know that today is the trade deadline. So I want you all to be very aware of that. You have to be quick. You have to pounce on certain pieces of news. Juan Soto being one of the more obvious ones, but there are going to be lots of unexpected pieces. So have your DK, your FD sportsbooks, your BetMGM sportsbooks, have them all pulled up and ready to go in the minutes leading up to the deadline and pounce if there's those big moves that decimate a lineup to a drastic degree. Oh, and as much baseball as I watch and as much as I might think I know, there is a 100% chance something that I don't expect to have happen now that will happen tomorrow. So if you're risk averse, this is certainly a slate to tread lightly on. But if you're reacting to major news, not just one average omission, something like that. Oh, man. Magical fingers there from Jordan Klein. Yeah, you heard me. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the MLB Live Before Lock show presented by Odd Shopper. I'm Eric Lindquist. You just saw me doing Lindy's lowdown, if you will. It was good times. Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks available every single day over on the Odd Shopper channel. Check that out. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, but we're ready to talk some DFS, some baseball fantasy. I'm excited to win some money. I think Greg Ehrenberg is too, because he's got the Lilo and Stitch shirt. And every time I see that shirt, I know it's going to be a damn good game, damn good day. He's at G Ehrenberg DFS over on Twitter. How you doing, my dude?
Good. I mean, this is a really interesting slate from a standpoint of the trade deadline ended 5 minutes ago. We're just finding out players that got traded. So not that I ever expected Noah Syndergaard to actually be the starter for the Angels today, but we're getting pretty late in the day and be like, oh, there's no trade yet for Noah Syndergaard. And he's still listed as the starting pitcher in our tools right now because he just got traded a couple of minutes ago. So it's just a lot of stuff like this. Whit Merrifield just got traded, which makes this an even easier matchup for really cheap Lucas Giolito. We don't know who's going to be starting for the Angels tonight against the A's. So There's going to be a lot of tools that get updated over the course of the show. And also we're going to find out who's pitching for a lot of these teams and whatnot, because it's not what we thought it was this morning.
Speaking of tools that need updating, how about that like button count? We need to get those things climbing up, because 160, wasn't Josh Engelman just on the previous show? I thought he was the like master flex.
Not anymore. He's moved on from that. He's now, I don't know what his thing is now. Just, I guess, doing mediocre baseball shows, not getting likes though. And if you guys want to really show what's up on these shows, really show up Josh and Adam, then now this is where you like the video and subscribe.
Yeah, stick it to those fuckers. How about that? Let's go.
Yeah.
Hit that like button.
Yeah,
Let's get
right
that
in the
thing
ass.
climbing. Whoa, that was aggressive.
is that not what
Well,
we're
actually,
talking
I said the F word, so that was way more aggressive. But hey, we're having fun here on a Tuesday. I'm really excited about this slate. I'm excited about pitching on this slate. And God, I do know everything that you see behind you is a result of when Corbin Burns for Greg Ehrenberg. He made Greg Ehrenberg a truck of money last season as you bet him for NL Cy Young at multiple places, multiple times. He continues to be very damn good this season, and he's got the highest top 2 pitcher percentage here on today's slate. Jacob deGrom isn't going to pitch long enough for me, so I'll just take him off the board immediately. I have zero interest in 0% of him, but Corbin Burns, oh boy, Greg, he's your boy. He's grading out the best in our tools. He's going to be the most popular just slightly. How are you doing, or how are you handling your exposure to Corbin Burns today?
Yeah, so I mean, him and Strider, I think these are the two pitchers that warrant the most ownership today. I think they're the two best pitching options on the slate. I just want to ask you, though, what do you make of DeGrom's current projected ownership? I know it's a situation that's really, really difficult to know what to make of. DeGrom, I'm assuming, we haven't gotten official word, but his last rehab start, he pitched 67 pitches, 4 innings. I'm expecting something in the neighborhood of 75 to 80 pitches, 4 to 5 innings tonight from DeGrom. He's projected for a decent amount of ownership. And on one hand, it's like this Nationals lineup sucks now without Juan Soto and Josh Bell. But I just don't know what to make of DeGrom's ownership from a standpoint of, I agree with you. He's actually picking up ownership. I don't have interest in him. But in large field tournaments, like if he's going to potentially be like 5% owned, then I would be interested. I just really don't know where the field is going to be at on him. I feel like our ownership on him might be a little bit aggressive, and I think there's a good chance that Burns ends up being more popular, DeGrom ends up being less popular. But what do you actually think ends up happening with DeGrom here? Because there's a lot of unknowns.
So, I mean, I don't want to say that our show has something to do with some ownership from time to time, but like there's 918 of you beautiful, lovely human beings, both man and ladies. What?
It's very insignificant. 918 people. It's
918 people. I mean, I know from time to time there's some 150ers that watch our stuff from time to time, and maybe not that you and I are going to influence them more than the tools are, but they use logic. They can put things together in a 1 + 1 = 2 sort of way. But for me, it just comes down to what is the path. Like, here's the things that have to happen for Jacob deGrom, I think, to have a tournament winning performance. 1, he's got to pitch more than 70 pitches. Fair, like no doubt about it.
Yeah, which 76 pitches is last start. Like I said, I think 75 to 80 is a realistic expectation.
Okay, so that's 1. 2, he's got to strike out probably 8 batters, considering he's 10-3, so he's more expensive than Strider, who's abysmally priced, Lucas Giolito, who can always get strikeouts from time to time. The other stuff is questionable. Corbin Burns for $200 less. Like, for me, if Jacob deGrom was 9K, we're having a different conversation, or 8K would be really, really fun on this kind of a slate, because he'd be another guy that would be at like 40%, 35% ownership alongside Burns, alongside other guys. But considering he's pulling ownership, I don't even have him in my pool right now. And I understand Washington is abysmal. I bet them at +2.5 because 2.5 was the run line number at -110, like 90-something% of the public money is coming in. It's not like Washington being terrible is something that's now magical. I mean, Josh Bell getting shipped out in addition to Juan Soto. This is a completely different lineup than you were looking at before. It's horrendous, but you need deGrom to be perfect. He's coming off of the IL. You got to expect the Mets in a smart world, which they're not a smart organization from time to time, but you got to think that they're going to really be careful with Jacob deGrom here. I just think the opportunity cost, considering he's the most expensive pitcher on the board, is too high for me when there's so many upside arms for 2K less.
Yeah, I mean that all. So, by the way, I have 0% exposure to Jacob deGrom. I
Me
just
too.
have a feeling that I'm going to get to lock. He's going to be 5% owned. They'll be like, I would have liked to roster him at 5%, but right now we do have him projected for 22% ownership over on DraftKings. FanDuel is projected for 4% ownership, but it's really hard to get behind him on FanDuel when the quality start is fairly important, and it seems unlikely he would be allowed to pitch 6 innings today. So I'm not playing him right now, but I'm a little concerned that he's going to be kind of unowned and Burns is going to be way more popular than expected.
Yeah, that would suck. But here's the thing too. Like even a 5% Jacob deGrom at 5%, where the kind of upside he can have if he's the 2021 version of himself, which would also be known as the greatest pitcher in the history of baseball. But I think it's a pretty easy deal to look at and be like, all right, if Jacob deGrom comes out and he's the reason that I don't win this slate, I'm actually okay with it, because I do think just because the Washington Nationals, we've been talking about them all day, they've blown it all up into smithereens. I do think Jacob deGrom ends up over 10%. So I'm just going to hit the complete fade button and be okay with it regardless. If he ends up 5%, such is life, but I still think that I would rather have the rest of the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have him in my lineups right now. Like I said, I think it's an interesting talking point. If it wasn't for the Soto trade and the MLB trade deadline in general, by far the biggest story of the day would be Jacob deGrom coming back from the injured list and making a season debut. It's kind of gotten buried at this point. It's not even the biggest story from his own game. The biggest story in the game he's playing in is that Juan Soto got traded. I'm really curious to see what that Nationals lineup looks like also, because it's going to be bad. I'm curious to see how bad, and are they going to release Nelson Cruz, buy him out? What happens there? I know that Nelson Cruz hasn't been particularly good this year, but it doesn't seem there's any value in holding him on the roster.
He'll look really good in a Minnesota uniform later. He'll look really, really good in a couple days in a Minnesota uniform.
Who would he even play over, though? Like, just based on his numbers this year.
You just DH him, and you could probably do some kind of a platoon. He just faces lefties from here on out, and you probably have Kirilloff sit against lefties.
Oh, your guy. You're benching your favorite player?
Well, I mean, left on left, he's only started twice all season long. I look at baseball stats all day long. I just want to let it be known. I actually know this. Alex Kirilloff has only faced 2 lefties in the starting lineup this entire season. It's disturbing, but hey, thank you so much. Alex Kirilloff plus 750 on FanDuel to hit a home run today. One-time dealer, one time.
Well, you also need Juan Miranda to homer, which I know for certain reasons.
Well, you might know for certain reasons because you're special and you're given all the ins and outs, all the secrets. I mean, I've basically stolen how you bet and tried to be profitable myself when I do smart things, but then you pat me on the back and say it's all right and help me out. But we continue to, I think, the most intriguing pitcher on the entire board, the chalk that I'm the most happy to eat. It is our boy. Yes, our boy, Spencer Strider. He is damn good at pitching baseballs. And why? Oh, why is he under 8,500 on DraftKings? I have no explanation. So yeah, this is the guy I'm more inclined to think is going to be the 45-50% type pitcher instead of Corbin Burns. How much Strider is too much Strider today, Greg?
I mean, as of right now, I think him and Burns are clearly the 2 pitchers to get the most exposure to. And with Strider, it just doesn't make any sense. He has a strikeout rate of nearly 40%. And something is broken in the pricing algorithms. It's not just DraftKings, FanDuel as well. They have an identical price tag on him. $8,300 on both sites. And, we'll see this happen from time to time where a pitcher's price will be way off on one side, but different on another. Like DraftKings has not been able to figure out Shohei Ohtani this year. Not that FanDuel has either. They still don't have him eligible to be a pitcher and a hitter on the same day. But every time Ohtani pitches, he's like $8,200, $8,600 on DK. FanDuel at least has him priced appropriately. But Strider is just way off on both sites. $8,300 is crazy. He should be, just based on his strikeout rate, I'm not saying he's as good as Corbin Burns right now, but when you consider that he's striking out like 2 out of 5 hitters he faces, he should be over 10K on DK today. Should be over 10K on FanDuel. So he is woefully underpriced. I think it's very, very easy to say the 2 pitchers you're going to in cash games tonight, it's Corbin Burns and Spencer Strider.
Yes, it is. Those would be my 2, like, automatically. You could make a case for Javier at 8,700 if you wanted to just try. No, I can't make a case for it for cash. I can't. It's Corbin Burns and Spencer Strider. Come on, he's facing Pittsburgh. Let's be dead serious about this.
Yeah, I think that for sure. Because there's a lot of good pitching options on the slate, and there's other guys we could talk about who are a little bit lesser owned that make for good tournament plays. But here's basically the decision points at different price points. And also, there's enough cheap offense that it's really easy to pay up for pitching. So as a high-end pitcher, the options are DeGrom or Burns. It's pretty clearly Burns for cash game purposes when you consider that DeGrom has his pitch limits. Then you get into Christian Javier versus Spencer Strider. And you could maybe make a case for Javier just because he has also had a really good season, really high strikeout rate. But we're getting a cheaper price point on Strider. Matchup's about similar, right? Boston go for Christian Javier and then Philadelphia for Spencer Strider. But still, I think Strider's been just a little bit better. He's also cheaper. So those would be my cash game considerations on DK. I go Burns and Strider if I was playing cash. FanDuel, it would just be Strider outright because Burns is all the way up to 11,300. I think you could do a lot with the $3,000 in salary savings.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, let's have some fun because now the rest of the board just kind of opens up. At least in my opinion, it does. We'll see what the ownership comes in for Burns and Strider, but I think it's pretty clear to me that they'll be the two highest. Kevin Gausman, though, comes into the mix. He gets the Trop bump. A lot easier pitching in Tropicana against a Tampa Bay lineup than it is pitching in Toronto. Came off of an outing where he got lit up by a Arenado-less and Goldschmidt-less St. Louis team. It was a beautiful thing. Way to go, Adam Wainwright, for one day. I'm not going to roster you today, but how do you feel about Kevin Gausman? Because he's the guy that you could get to lock, and he could end up being the one who kind of gets fallen through the cracks a little bit more than Corbin Burns and Spencer Strider do.
Well, based on his ownership, I can't consider him because he's currently projected for very comparable ownership. So we've got a handful of pitchers right now that are projected to be popular. We've got Corbin Burns, Christian Javier, Jacob deGrom, Spencer Strider, Kevin Gausman. Those five are the DK chalk. Of those five, the ones I have the least interest in are deGrom and Gausman. Gausman is just because I like the pitchers around him. What happened?
Kirilloff isn't in the lineup. They brought up Jake Cave.
Did they put Kirilloff on the injured list?
No, but I'm assuming that he needs another day for his wrist. And so Jake Cave, I don't think he's made an appearance this entire season. I just saw the lineup come through instantaneously.
By the way, Kirilloff was just placed on the injured list.
Was he? Yeah, Jake Cave, recalled from AAA St. Paul. That was all of 25 minutes ago, and I didn't see it. So there you go. Good times.
Yeah. Kirilloff on the injured list. This is actually the better scenario for you because the worst case scenario would have been Kirilloff pinch hits later in the game, and then you only get one at bat out of him. This at least that half the bet gets voided.
Shit. This isn't Paul George, but it's still bummer. Alex Kirilloff was plus 750. What are we doing? Guy's got crazy power facing Matt Manning. Oh, just trying to do smart kid things like my friend Greg, and I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm a dumb.
He's on the injured list.
What are you, an idiot sandwich?
Of all the, well, yes, you are all those things. But you've also, I think, of all, the obvious best scenario here was Alex Kirilloff just starting and homering. The worst case scenario for you was him not starting and pinch hitting at some point later in the game.
This is true. Byron Buxton, not going to be able to play. So I didn't see him in the lineup either. Cool.
Yeah, this is a fairly weak Minnesota lineup. Yeah. I know the pitching is terrible for Matt Manning and the Detroit Tigers today. But this is not a great Minnesota Twins lineup that's currently projected to have the most ownership on the slate. We'll talk about them more when it comes to stacks. But back to the pitchers, you were asking me about Gausman, and he's projected for 31% ownership right now on DK. Over on FanDuel, he is projected for 18% ownership. I just don't really have that much interest in him when Javier is projected for less ownership and then Strider and Burns are comparably owned. Those are just far better plays to me.
I agree. If this were Kevin Gausman last year, maybe. Things change. People change. Whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter.
Fangraphs briefly went down. I assume that's just because the amount of people that are going to it right now. I think it's back down now. People
are just watching the trade deadline like the one flew over the cuckoo's nest meme. One of those. You know what I'm talking about?
What was one of what?
Jack Nicholson, where he goes like,
yeah, I saw you the first time. I just wanted to make you do it again. There you go. The more times that Eric could look like an idiot on camera, the better for me. I know what you're talking about.
Christian Javier, talk to me about him. He's 8,700. That seems cheap.
So I think he's a really good play to get to. What a lot of people are going to be doing when they're hand building their lineups is they're going to be choosing between Christian Javier and Spencer Strider, particularly on DraftKings. 8,700 for Javier, 8,300 for Strider. My personal lean is to get to more of Strider. I think Javier is a perfectly good GPP play, but if you're hand building one lineup and you can only play one in this price range, the answer to me is Strider, because I think that's really the comparison point that comes up here. But with that said, he is my third favorite of the chalky pitchers today. It is Burns 1, Strider 2, and Javier 3.
Look at that. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to just say Strider 1, Strider 2, Strider 3. I just can't not jam Spencer Strider today. It has to happen. But there's other pitchers, Greg. I keep seeing a lot of Tristan McKenzie talk because it's his birthday. I do not give a shit. 9,800 for him. He should be completely unowned. I don't really have any desire to be going that direction. Logan Gilbert is facing the Yankees. Yeah, no thanks. Tyler Anderson. Is there anybody else above Spencer Strider that you want to get to any shares of? Because I really don't, other than the guys we've talked about, obviously, Corbin Burns, Kevin Gausman a little bit. Maybe not. I'm not going to have 0%. I have 12% as it is right now. But then Strider's just getting jammed by me, and I'm getting to nobody else in this range outside of him. And Javier. Forgot to throw him in as well.
Yeah, so Tyler Anderson, that's a no for me. Not enough strikeout upside. Matchup against the Giants isn't quite ideal. Good park matchup for him. He's going to be in San Francisco, one of the more pitcher-friendly parks in the league. As for Tristan McKenzie, would it be helpful if I had some Fangraphs loading? Fangraphs is up now, but it's still loading fairly slow with all the traffic they're getting. You know, McKenzie is a good ERA, 3.24 for the year. His underlying numbers are not good, though. He's a 3.91 expected ERA, a 4.11 FIP. And I should reiterate, by not good, I mean just mediocre. It's not like he's a bad pitcher or anything like that, but very middle of the road pitcher for me overall. Tristan McKenzie, 23.8% strikeout rate. So slightly above average there, about average in terms of the peripheral stats in totality as a pitcher. And you need him to outscore Strider, DeGrom, Javier, Burns, Gausman at this kind of price point to be on an optimal lineup today. And I just don't see it considering how McKenzie's pitched this year. He's been better than he's been in previous years. He's taken a step forward in terms of his overall pitching ability. But the way he's done that is by throwing more strikes, allowing more contact. So his walk rate is half of what it was last year. That's awesome. But his strikeout rate is also considerably down. So last year, at least with McKenzie, we had a guy who was like, we didn't know what the hell we're getting out of him. You could get a 10 strikeout game. It could be a game where he gets lit up. This year, he's been more consistently successful, but it's come at the expense of some fantasy upside. And considering where he's priced at right now, it's hard for me to be interested.
Okay. I like your breakdown there here. Everybody hit that like button. We're up over 260. You guys like us. You really like us. Josh Engelman, what were you doing, dude? What were you doing? What else? What do you do here? What would you say you do here?
Just does nothing but sits here, asks Adam his opinions, and then watches soccer during the game.
Really does. I can't imagine that. I don't know. 75-minute show. I love knowing that he gets the 75-minute show on Tuesdays. It's maybe my favorite thing, knowing that I get 60 minutes, nice, clean, crisp here on the Live Before Lock show with my buddy Greg, doing the tip to tip. Always the tip to tip, my friends. Let's continue down the board, shall we? Because there's now this Lucas Giolito fellow who opens up the next range of pitchers. He's 6,800. There's nobody, I think, point per dollar underneath that 8,300 Spencer Strider that comes close to Lucas Giolito against Kansas City. Does it feel comfortable rostering him at the moment? No, I would say Lucas Giolito definitely doesn't, but the amount of bats he can possibly get you, and knowing that he has a 25.8% strikeout rate, and you just lost Whit Merrifield out of this lineup, that adds Kyle Isbell and his 25.9% K percentage to this lineup. Yahtzee to me.
Yeah, actually, because the Whit Merrifield trade happened just as we were starting the show, I haven't had a chance to look at some of the alternate strikeout lines for Lucas Giolito. I'm going to peep those right now.
That's a good idea. Oh, you're just going to peep them? That sounds naughty.
Yeah, because, I'm not sure if I want to take action on them. I'm just kind of curious to see what they look like right now. Because if we get some long odds on decent strikeout props for Giolito, that would be of interest to me. Because you mentioned it right there. The strikeout stuff is good this year. Everything else has been underwhelming. He's a 5.14 ERA, a 4.55 expected ERA, 0.7 wins above replacement. So he's been a back end starter overall. There's still talent there. He projects fairly well in Zips and Steamer moving forward. I wish I knew what the issue was. Like, I wish I knew that there was an underlying injury. He was tipping his pitches. His velocity is way down this year, which has been a little bit of a trend over the last few years, a little bit concerning. If we go back to 2019, which is the first year he broke out, this was the breakout year for Giolito. 94.4 average fastball velocity. 2020, 94.2. Last year, 94. This year, 93.1. So it is down about 1.5 miles from the year he first broke out. It's not ideal. Potentially there's an injury that he's not disclosing with the team, or it's something that he's not even aware of himself that's just leading to arm fatigue. But I don't know if it's that or him tipping pitches, but the results are so far off from the last few years. But we still have the strikeouts, and the matchup could not be easier because this Royals team, they traded Benintendi, they traded Whit Merrifield. It's just not going to be a potent offense moving forward. And considering the strikeout rate of Giolito and the fact that people aren't going to want to play him, because this morning I realized that right away on the strategy show this morning when we were talking about Giolito, and immediately people were like, why would anybody want to play Giolito? He sucks. And at the time, he was projected to be nearly 30% owned this morning. It's now at 16% on DK. FanDuel, he's a little bit less appealing. He's $7,800, which it's much different than when we roster two pitchers and it's $6,800. But the fact that he's not popular and he's 6,800 in the matchup he's in with the strikeout stuff he has, I think he's a very good upside tournament play. Like you said, do we feel good about it? Absolutely not. He could get lit up, I think, against any team considering some of the contact he's allowing. But I still think it's $6,800. He's one of the cheapest pitchers on the slate, not really picking up ownership. He's somebody I want to get to.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the pivot in his range. And this is going to be the most disturbing thing I've ever said in my entire life. But I have Chris Archer exposure. He's 6,700. He's 0.5% owned as it is right now. This Detroit lineup is so bad. And I thought they would maybe even get worse. They have a 67 WRC plus. That's 11 runs lower than number 2 in Oakland below them. They have a 102 ISO against righties. Chris Archer is terrible. He's no good. He's very bad. But there's an opportunity here at 6,700. And in the event that Giolito gets destroyed, there's a couple lineups I have where, it's like 6% of lineups where Chris Archer ends up being the guy there. I get Cole Irvin. People are talking about a little bit. I don't know if I want to be doing Cole Irvin against the Angels, although there's obviously merit to anybody against the Angels at the given moment. Adam Wainwright. I mean, there's just nothing else down here that's really all that appealing other than Lucas Giolito from a strikeout perspective. I'm kind of taking the blind offering of Chris Archer. I think that's what people are kind of doing with Cole Irvin, but any case you can make for anybody else on the board underneath 8K.
By the way, so one thing I'm going to mention, one more point on Giolito, just because I was talking about the strikeout prop and just went and looked him up. His over from strikeouts is 6.5 today. So if you guys really hate Giolito, I mean, I think you want to bet the under 6.5 strikeouts. I am not going to bet that. I was going to consider looking at the over in some of the alto lines, not when it's 6.5. Like that's a pretty significant strikeout line. But that goes to show you also what books are expecting from him. And then you look at Giolito's numbers, and I get it. Everybody in chat is just Giolito sucks. For the month of July, which just ended, he had a 3.63 FIP and a 3.89 XFIP. Mm-hmm. It's not Cy Young stuff, but I think the idea that he's totally washed is a little bit overblown because I think that our preconceived notions of him, what we expected from him coming into the season, and he's failed to meet those expectations by such a wide margin, makes people think Giolito is worse than he actually is.
All right, Greg. Any other pitchers that you want to note, kind of round it home for us here? We're at the 28-minute mark here of the hour. We've got lots to get to from a stack perspective. I got some stuff to talk about, but any other pitcher you want to give a shout out to?
Let me look at the current board for pitching. And I know you would ask me specifically anybody priced around or below Giolito. It's tough, especially when you consider, and this is, by the way, going to be another case for Giolito. Let me refresh the pitchers board because stuff has changed just in the course. Pretty significantly, stuff has changed since we started doing the show. But the players that we have priced below or around Giolito today, so he's at 6,800. There's around him Jordan Lyles, Brad Keller. That's a no. Then you got Chris Archer. By the way, I saw people talking about rostering Chris Archer today. For reference about how big of a gap there is in terms of how sportsbooks view these pitchers, Chris Archer's over-under for strikeouts today is 3.5, whereas Giolito's, I just mentioned, is 6.5. When they're almost the same price, it's hard for me to say that Archer's a guy to go to, especially when Archer's just not pitching very many innings. He's, pretty routinely been around 4 innings in recent starts. Then Keegan Thompson, Cutter Crawford, Matt Manning, Spencer Howard, Reese Neer, Jose Urania, Bryce Wilson, Corey Abbott. these are just not appealing pitching options at all. And I think Giolito is just by far the highest upside pitcher of these guys, and then also just the best. No matter what you think of him this year, I think he's still a better pitcher than those other guys.
Yeah, my thing is more if he fails, like what does failure look like on this kind of a slate at that range? And I think it just opens up a lot of what you can do to get to certain bats that I might just be more inclined to get to than others. Some expensive bats to get to. I think you're going to win today with bats because some of these chalkier pitcher options are just really, really good. I think that's the primary way to go. And I'm trying to mix in somebody that's really, really low owned. So I might as well go all the way to the bottom there. Chris Archer gets the best spot on the board. That lineup just came out. It does have Eric Haas back in it here. He didn't get moved. Still Castro batting third. Just exactly what you'd expect. It's the normal Tigers lineup, which is not a good lineup by any means, but just wanted to give him a shout out. That's the most time I've ever spent talking about Chris Archer in the last, 2 years of doing shows, because he's generally just terrible and out of play.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the matchup's good, but he's going to throw like 3 or 4 innings.
Don't say that. That'd be sad. But you know what's not sad? How great it is to have Underdog launching the Puppy 3 Best Ball Contest 2022 NFL season quickly approaching, just over a month away. I'm upset because Tim Patrick was one of my big stands that I had in my Kansas City Week 17 best ball drafts. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. We've got you guys covered. It's a $1 weekly access to the best ball kit now through Sunday, August 7th. That's $8.99 off that original weekly price. Look at all the great stuff it gets you. Best ball and fantasy football rankings, premium strategy content, consensus rankings, download and upload the rankings to Underdog Fantasy directly. It gets as simple as that. All you do, Puppy3 at checkout. That is the promo code. If you guys go to Stokastic, if you guys want to get this at the Best Ball channel, check out all the great work that we have so many guys doing around the clock for the NFL product, getting you guys ready to go in T-minus 1.5 months. I mean, it's less than that, where we are 36 days away from football. I'm excited. I think you guys should be excited too. Make sure you're also subscribed to the Stokastic Fantasy Football and Best Ball YouTube channels. Yes, we have Odd Shopper for you guys to click on as well, but Fantasy Football and Best Ball, you're really going to want to be a part of those programs. We're going to have guys like me, guys like Greg Ehrenberg. We're going to have a lot of people hopping in and out of those streets throughout this season. Lofty doing great work over there. We've got Matt Savoca doing great work over there. Little man Nick Lepre doing great work over there. Check out everybody on the YouTube channel over there. Give them a like, subscribe, follow, and then use Puppy3 at checkout to get all of that great best ball stuff.
You want a quick funny thing about that read before we move forward. So this morning I was trying to do that read in the middle of the strategy show, and players kept getting traded, and like I just couldn't get through.
Shiny new thing.
There'd be, and it wasn't little news either. It was stuff I had to address. It was like with the Juan Soto trade is happening in the middle of the
not important.
Read. And so people are like, well, Juan Soto getting traded. And then it's like, all right, what are the betting implications? And that happened like 3 times. It probably took 10 minutes to get through the ad read just because the trade's happening in the middle of it.
Puppy3.
Yeah.
There you go. Promo code. Use it. Love it. Need it. Want it. All of it. Let's talk stacks. Greg, my question that I ask you on all of these shows, and no, you and I have done some shows together, my friend, in these MLB streets. Who is your single entry team that you want to stack up today?
I don't know.
Oh, cool. So this is one of those, like, we talk through it as a thought exercise.
So here's the issue. I usually have my lineups fairly built out beforehand. I couldn't do that today because players were getting traded. I didn't even know who the starting pitchers were beforehand. So it became an issue. There's a couple of teams that I'm certainly considering. There's also a lot of bullpen games today now. Like we have, I assume the Angels, it's going to be a bullpen game against not that I'm considering the A's, but we don't know who's pitching for them. We've got the Phillies. We don't really know who's going to be on the mound for the Phillies. We don't really know what the Nationals situation is going to look like. So yeah, it's pretty hard to parse. And it certainly was 40 minutes ago also. So we're going to have to talk through this a little bit.
Okay, Ryan Stubbs said mine right out of the gate there. I'm playing single entry. They have that bat contest and whatever else, the $44, the $4.40, all that stuff over on DK. Looks beautiful. Trying to win that stuff. I have the Astros right now as the team that I want to stack up. Cutter Crawford getting a lot of respect. And as you said, there's a lot of pieces that still are changing here in my sheet. we got a lot of work. I'm making sure I'm just refreshing Jeff Passan a couple times, making sure nothing else hit the wire, because sometimes the deadline will pass, but then, oh, surprise, Contreras got traded. He did not get traded. Him and Ian Happ look like they are staying together. That is wild. The Cubs didn't do anything with them. It's not like, I mean, they have no control over him next year. He's a free agent, right?
Contreras, Happ, or both? I'll have to look it up.
I believe Contreras is a free agent next year.
So the one that was the Juan Soto trade, I'm talking to this as I look up the contract for Wilson Contreras. The Nationals had 3 years of control left on Juan Soto, and he's 23 years old. It's so crazy to me. They just got other guys who are not even that much younger for him as prospects. I mean, I would have just held on to him if I were them. But Wilson Contreras contract, let's see. What do they have for team control?
I think he's up next year, if I do recall.
Right,
Happ has
so
one more year. I knew that.
Yeah, Wilson Contreras. I didn't realize he was this old. Wilson Contreras, 30. He is going to be a free agent in the offseason. So
what the hell? What are you doing, Cubs?
So
they must just want to negotiate with him, right? And then.
So what I'm thinking is, if we're trying to add a narrative to this, when the Red Sox traded away John Lester, remember the Red Sox had John Lester. They traded him at a deadline. They weren't competitive that year. He only had 1 year left on his contract. I believe they traded him to the A's, if I remember right. But anyway, his contract is expiring. The Red Sox love John Lester. They just weren't competitive that year. They wanted to bring him back the next year. Because he got traded, John Lester just said, screw you guys, I have no interest in signing with them in the offseason. He said recently in an interview that if the Red Sox did not trade him, he would have re-signed with them. But because they traded him, he had no interest. He felt like they didn't really value him. And I do wonder if this is something similar that the Cubs feel with Contreras.
That's so dumb. Don't you want to win this year? You're not winning anything with Boston, and you're not winning anything with the Cubs. So try to win this year and then sign with them in the offseason.
So by the way, Ian Happ still has an arbitration year left, so he still has team control.
Oh, yeah. So I said I knew he had 1 year at least.
Yeah.
That was kind of the big hook for him, was that they thought he could maybe get a haul for it. Ian Happ hasn't really been all that good this season, so that might be why. But last year, Ian Happ, that would have been something that would have drawn a pretty penny.
Jose Suarez starting for the Angels. By the way,
I just saw that too. So I'm plugging him in my sheet, adding him to my grouping. So I mean, this just kind of changes it completely. I mean, it's a southpaw now facing this Athletics lineup. It's not like the Athletics have some fantastic lineup, but they still have Piscotty. They still have Seth Brown. They still have Ramon Laureano, specifically Sean Murphy as well. They now get the platoon split going up against Suarez. And yeah, Jose Suarez is not very good. Let's be serious.
Yeah, so he's very cheap on DK, 6,300. Here's the issue, though.
No.
Here are his, but here, here's recent starts. 78 pitches, 79 pitches, 52 pitches, 79 pitches. He's probably going to be under 80 pitches. That's just the way they've used him. So I don't feel like I have to consider him now.
Hasn't he been like a long reliever in some spots too?
Has he been a long reliever?
Has he not started some of those games? Because I'm not sure if I remember him starting a couple of these.
Let's pull it up. I mean, either way, it doesn't seem like he's stretched out to throw all that many pitches. I'm pulling up his game log on Fangraphs to see if he's...
Just tell me games started, because I'm curious.
He started all those games.
He did. Okay, just wanted to double check to make sure I wasn't saying anything out of sorts. But
he's starting games, and he started the last 3 games and made it through the 4th inning in one of them.
Butthole Jenkins, any love for Polanco and Miranda tonight? Yeah, but everybody else does too, and they're popular, so we'll get there. All right, I guess I'm just gonna have some Athletics interest now. That's kind of random to say out loud.
I think it's unnecessary on a slate of this size.
It's like a secondary stack, like Sean Murphy, Ramon Laureano.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'm not a massive Syndergaard fan either. I thought there was some stolen base upside there. The A's were projected to be somewhat popular.
Well, not anymore. No Tony Kemp for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, we had the A's as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th most popular offense today.
So wild. That's not going to be the case anymore. It's going to look a little different, but I'm going to play Piscotty. I'm going to play Laureano. I'm going to play Murphy, and I doubt I get to any Seth Brown left on left. Maybe I get a tiny bit here. I'm just kind of finishing everything up on that end, but That's what happens here on these trade deadline shows. You get some new information. Obviously, Whit Merrifield not in that lineup. Make sure he's not there. He's going to the Blue Jays. So y'all do not play him from Kansas City. Even though I will have a little bit of Kansas City going up against the White Sox there on the other side. Jake Cronenworth, 2-run home run. What is the score of that San Diego game in the morning? I did bet San Diego like a fish.
They are up 7-3. They were down 3-0 and they came back. There you go.
There it is, folks. Let's go. Let's go. God, I tell you what, Lindy's Leads, Likes, and Locks has made me just a sick person.
I like he did the Will Ferrell, Frank the Tank celebration there.
We watched Old School last night. That's why.
Okay.
It was so good.
I'm not off base there.
My wife had never seen Old School until last night.
She works in the movie and entertainment
industry. She works in the movie and entertainment industry. She had never seen Old School. Jordan Klein shaking his head. That is appropriate. That is the appropriate response. I was just like, this is not fair. She gets to watch this for the first time. It's on Netflix right now for anybody who cares. But like, I was so jealous because she was dying laughing the whole time. And I'm like, I've seen this movie 30 times. And I was literally just watching it because she's like, oh, I have to go rinse off. Because what is it also about women? Not to just go on this complete diatribe that isn't anything to do with MLB, but
sexist.
No. What is it about them coming home from like a dinner? Like she showered, she got ready to go out, and then she comes home and it's like, oh, I have to rinse off. What is that? Why do you need to rinse off? Because you're out in public for 2 hours? All of a sudden, I can't possibly put on my pajamas and go to bed here in this terrible state that I'm in.
All right. So I would think you would understand this because you are a man who wears makeup, but that's what a lot of it has to do with.
You're just a sniper. You sit on the pinnacle you sit on your little pedestal, and I'm Vin Diesel in Saving Private Ryan running around.
But every time. That, number one, that is the answer. Number two, you should be able to relate.
I can't. Let's talk other stacks, shall we? The Minnesota Twins. I said we would talk about them. They're so freaking popular, and we'll see kind of how it comes through in the wash, but they're the most popular team against Matt Manning, and I think it makes sense that they are, but not really with this lineup that they're rolling out. Rip City to my Minnesota Twins. Hope Jose Miranda hits a home run. That's for sure. I think you can play him at cleanup considering he's only 7.5%. So I like getting to him. I like getting to Gio Urshela there, but now you can only pick one of the two of them at third base. It was a lot more fun when Miranda still had that first base eligibility. He's for whatever reason lost it on DK. And now you get Jake Cave as the lefty in there who I never really liked rostering him. I don't know how I rostered the Twins at their current ownership. Greg, are you with me?
Yeah, so clearly this is one of the teams that's most likely to be the highest scoring team on the slate, but they are really popular for this slate because 14 games, we have a lot of teams to choose from, and they're picking up 10% ownership. We have them with the third highest top stack odds on the slate, but it's still well short of where they are expected to relative to their ownership here. 6.8% top stack odds, 10.2% ownership. So I don't really have interest in making 5-man stacks of them. If you want to use them as a secondary stack or one-offs in some less popular stacks, or if you're just playing really less popular pitchers, like if I saw some people in chat like Cole Irvin, I don't today. But if you are somebody who's like, I want to play this 5% owned pitcher I really like today, you don't have to be concerned about the offense ownership, and then it's more acceptable to play the Twins. But since I'm rostering guys like Corbin Burns and Spencer Strider at pitcher, I have to get a little bit more contrarian at offense. And I don't think I could do that with the Minnesota Twins. It's the most popular offense of the slate. And like you said, it is a watered down version of their lineup.
So who are the other teams that you're landing on here? Because again, we haven't come up with your single entry team stack. And I want to know in the next 17 minutes who that's going to be. I think there's a lot of different options you have on the board. Who is really tickling your fancy? Who do you want to put the makeup on the pig of? Just like, making fun of myself.
Yeah. So if it can't be you is the answer, refreshing the ownership one more time.
You could roster me against Matt Manning. That's for sure.
Wait a sec. We just got an ownership update and there's no ownership going to the Twins now. What's going on here? I'm confused, Eric.
Well, they don't have Buxton. They don't have Kirilloff.
Yeah, except in our
they
last
have a lot
run
of shitty pitcher or a lot of back end shitty dudes.
Our last run of ownership, they were nearly 11% owned. Now they're 2.5%.
What? No way. What?
I'm just saying.
They were the most popular team.
I know, but now they're not. So I'm confused. Like, if this is actually the if this is actually the case 10 minutes from now, then the answer is going. I just spent the last few minutes railing on Minnesota and how popular they are. And then we get an ownership update and nobody's.
My favorite team on the slate is Minnesota. Let's go.
Yeah, my least favorite team on the slate is Minnesota. What's your favorite team on the slate? Minnesota.
Shit.
So I guess Minnesota now? Because it is. I mean, it sucks to have
this is
to do
hilarious.
This. It sucks to have to do this, but we just got an ownership update, and their ownership is a sixth of what it was a second ago.
Okay, well, now we play him. They still have a 5.2 implied total. That hasn't changed. Vegas has done nothing with this line. So cool. The Mets, they seem like a really popular team. The Braves seem like a really popular team. All right, I'm refreshing this. This is wild. They just went from 10.5% to 2.9% ownership in our last update.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what the
2.8. Sorry.
All right, let me look at some of the individual hitters here.
All right, let me go back to Houston here for a second, because this is still the team I think I want for single entry. Cutter Crawford is an unheralded prospect from the Boston Red Sox, and I do not understand why nobody wants to just fire up Houston against them. This lineup's ridiculous. I was really hoping it was going to have Christian Vasquez, although because it doesn't have him, that's one bat that I don't really have to pay up for, because you have Yordan Alvarez. That's who you really want to get to. But look at some of the prices for some of these Houston Astros, because yeah, Yordan Alvarez, you're paying full freight for. I totally get that. Yuli Gurriel batting second is 3,400. Kyle Tucker, 4,500. One of the most mispriced guys you could ever imagine. Speed and power combination. Altuve, 5,500. I get it's a positional thing, but then you get a 2K Jake Myers, a 3,500 Aledmus Diaz with multiple positions. Jeremy Pena, Alex Bregman, both sub 5K. Yeah, I'm just going to play a lot of Houston today.
All right. So there's 4 teams I'm choosing in between right now. The Mets, the Braves, your Astros. I was also on board with that this morning. I thought that was a good team that's getting a little bit overlooked today. And I like Cutter Crawford, but I just think this Astros team, improved offense, also going a little bit overlooked. And then the other one is going to be the Mets, Braves, Twins, Astros. I'm going to build lineups with those 4 teams, and then I'm going to sort through it and see which lineups.
Look,
which
best
lineup I land on of those, but it's going to be one of those 4 teams. And
yeah, I'm kind of doing a sorting process too. We should do at some point. I mean, I know T McP is just smashing the FanDuel streets this season. Hanser Alberto batting 5th for the Dodgers. Bleh, bleh. Hate that so much. Also, Gavin Lux could have been moved for Soto, and that didn't happen. Is he in that lineup today? Yeah, he's batting 7th, so that's cool. Wild stuff going on in baseball. Also, I have a ton of Yankees. They're like 2% owned, especially like the DJ LeMahieu's, Jose Trevino's. The guys not named Aaron Judge are really, really low owned, and that seems like fun.
Yeah, and the Yankees ownership is, like you said, it's not high, but it's been skewed as of late because, I mean, why would people not want to play Aaron Judge? You start the game, he has 14 fantasy points on the board already, or at least he should start just based on the way he's been playing as of late. So he's been ridiculous, but then as a result, we'll have some of these slates where it's like, oh, Aaron Judge is going to be 25, 30% owned. So the Yankees will look like a really chalky stack in the aggregate, but it's really only because of him.
Yep. He's really good. Also, he's plus 140 to hit a home run on Logan Gilbert. What a time to be alive.
What did you say the number was?
He is plus 140 to hit a home run on Logan Gilbert.
That's one of those lines. Let's see. I assume
it's on DK. DK.
Is there a no? Let me pull.
There's a no, and you should probably. I mean, you should probably take the under, but I don't know. I'm hoping Aaron Judge hits a home run today because I have more than 10%. Yesterday, I was hoping he wouldn't. He was 33% owned. What does he do? Of course, he puts up 23. So that was fun. Yay, baseball.
We have him in our projections over at Odd Shopper. My best looking, but the lineups that look the best in the builds I've made, it's either the Twins or the Mets. So I've narrowed it down to one of those 2 stacks. Not sure which one I'm going to go with yet. All right. What do we have? Home run projection for Aaron Judge today. Can I reasonably get behind him to not homer today? It never feels good, but these are ridiculous odds.
Told you. I wasn't lying.
Yeah, no, minus 220, minus 225 to not hit a homer.
It's wild.
Aaron Judge. Oh, okay. BetMG, he's minus 200 over at BetMGM to not homer.
Yeah, you should hit
That's
that.
That's a ridiculous line. I know that he's just playing at a ridiculous level right now, but minus 200 for any player to not homer, I think we should be betting numbers like that all day.
All right, we got 10 minutes to go. I need to let you guys know about Odd Shopper because you're talking about Odd Shopper. You're talking about going there. Why don't we all just go there together, shall we? They're the sponsor here of the Live Before Lock show. If you go to Shop Bets, MLB in the top left corner, you have an opportunity to get the best tools and projections to help you make profitable prop bets every single day in the MLB streets. Yes, it is just as simple as what it sounds. You simply go to Shop Bets, you click on MLB, and the board presents itself. Tristan McKenzie, the under 6.5, 69% expected win percentage. That would be lovely for Prize Picks purposes. A 22% expected ROI. That's lovely to see as well. We've got Max Muncy plus 850. Gives you the exact book where you should be hitting that line. If you guys want to sign up at some of these books, we have offers simply at the top of Stokastic for you guys to take advantage of them. BetMGM has up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Why don't you use promo code Lindy when you head over there? That'll get you that $1,000 risk-free bet when you sign up over there. But lots of opportunities to sign up at these sports books. They're incentivizing you to sign up at these sports books, and then you can make money using these projections over at Odd Shopper. Greg, what stands out to you on the Odd Shopper board for today?
All right. So I know the bets that I've placed already today, and I'm trying to see what is now available at the moment. Well, the number one bet of the day is one that I could get behind. That is under 6.5 strikeouts for Tristan McKenzie, who you and I talked about him before. McKenzie, he's pitched better this year from a real life perspective. He's cut his walk rate, but that's also come with a pretty significant reduction in his strikeout rate, which definitely hampers him a little bit for fantasy. And I mean, 6.5 seems like such a big number. How many starts this entire year has McKenzie had 7 or more strikeouts?
Not many.
5. So he's made 18 starts.
That's wild. His K rate has plummeted every year.
I know the Diamondbacks don't present the most difficult matchup in the world, but I still think he's more likely at the under 6.5 than the over. We have the under winning 69% of the time. It seems reasonable to me.
Good call, Bean, dude. Muncy not starting, so don't bet on him. I saw that lineup. I just assumed when I was just scrolling through that I thought he would be in it. He is not. There you are. Hanser Alberto batting 5th. No Max Muncy. Letting you guys know those facts. I look at Chris Archer there, and again, I already talked about him being somebody that I thought was serviceable, but the under 3.5 with plus 122 attached to it, 22% expected ROI, I think that that's decent enough because, as you said, lots of ways that doesn't work out. For me, it's more of like if Giolito fails, is there anybody else in this range I can make a case for from a DFS perspective? Very different from a betting perspective. So guys, check that out over at Odd Shopper. Definitely be checking that out. And I'm going to throw this in too. Stokastic Plus tools and content we have right now for you guys using promo code MLB Live. If you want access to the top stacks tool, the top pitchers tool, the top batters tool, if you guys want access to the golf projections, starting up for the Wyndham Championship this weekend, Bermuda specialists all over the place playing out there in North Carolina. Looking forward to that event. You should be checking out the Top Golfers tool and the projections and the ownership projections we have for that. NASCAR, F1, MMA, you name it. We got great stuff for it. Right now, signing up using promo code MLB Live gets you 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus. So stop guessing, start winning, and join Greg and I here at Stokastic today. That would be awesome. All right. Have you started to narrow down who you want to go to from a stacks perspective? Because again, we've got we still have 12 minutes. There's no panic. There's no panic in baseball. San Diego's really popular. There's no way in God's green earth, even against Jose Urania, that I'm going to play a San Diego team that now has lost like all of their first basemen for today only.
Yeah, so I have narrowed it down to either the Mets or the Twins. I have builds with both of them, and I'm just refreshing ownership to see if anything changes because it's pretty crazy that we have the Twins ownership as being, all right, the Twins are now more popular than they've been at any other point during the day. So a lot of
what
changes.
Is going on?
So it'll just it's the trade deadline and data and lineups constantly being updated. But so I'm gonna go with the Mets lineup that I have in here.
Okay. I don't mind the Mets. Atlanta would be another one that I'd be just fine with going up against Francisco Morales. I can't even say it.
Try one more time, because
Nope.
that came out.
Nope,
so
I just
well.
had a seizure. In front of the people. I can't do it again. Francisco Morales. There it is. I did it.
Not a difficult name to pronounce, by the way.
I know. I just tried to put an accent to it and it didn't end up funny at all. And really kind of just pathetic on my part. And I might have to never appear in public again. There we go.
What is this? Tim Janssen? John Janssen?
Joint Sammy Swamp. Samsonite. I was way off.
Good job by you. This is
racist. No, it wasn't. I just tried to have fun with saying a name and it didn't work.
Yeah. By the way, we get some of the weirdest messages sometimes in YouTube chat. I'm looking at the one that's hidden right there.
Wow. I'm going to show it for the people. Because you know why? Why not? You typed it.
So we don't show a lot. We don't show a lot of the hidden messages that come up in there for a good reason. But you are. Thanks for the update on your personal life, Dope Heathen.
Yeah, really appreciate it. I'm getting some Jose Suarez, by the way. Thought that needed to be known.
Significant amount or just a little bit?
11%. I have no Chris Archer, so that makes me feel better.
Yeah, that was never somebody I considered. By the way, you mentioned the 3.5 strikeout prop. DK has it at 4.5. It depends if you want to pay the juice for it or not, but that's also not a bad look.
Wild.
Let's see, because everything is constantly getting updated. Really a slate that we don't typically see in baseball. There's usually not scrambles to update lineups and ownership and stuff like that. But where do we have now? Jose Suarez. Project for 4% ownership, so he's certainly not going to be popular. Giolito's come up in ownership a little bit, up to 23.4%.
Okay, that's good. I have 6% Kevin Gausman. My God, that seems egregious.
In terms of, you think that's too much, too little?
No, that's so little. I have 6%. That I'm not trying to. Again, this is just the way that it comes out, and I just click on it and I play it. I have just as much Tristan McKenzie as I have Kevin Gausman, which seems incorrect to me.
Based on their ownership, like I don't like playing either of them all that much. But if I had to choose one based on ownership, I would go to McKenzie just because he's 1/6 the ownership of Kevin Gausman. I don't think Gausman outscores him 6-1. I don't like either of them for the
Shark Killer G. Eric might be one of the funniest people on earth. LOL. Seriously good stuff. Suck on that, Greg. I'm funny.
No, I agree with you. You think I would be here if I didn't like working with you? You're one of my 15 or so favorite people at this company. By the way, look at.
I was waiting for it.
Jordan deleted the message.
Which
Jordan hit it in chat.
I love you.
Eric
guys.
might be one of the funniest people on earth. Well, right now Jordan's number one for me.
Yeah, Jordan just coming back. I am the captain now. Can I do that accent, or is that racist too?
Well, you could try. Let's see if it goes better than your last one.
I'm the captain now. I see cleaner. It was better. I said it better.
Yeah, but there wasn't really an accent. You just kind of said it.
Ken, I'm
Jordan,
being appropriate.
You're on a roll right now. A scale of 1 to 10. That was like a 2.3. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
I don't even know what to say. Let's kind of finish up talk of stacks here. We've got 7 minutes to go here. I'm finishing up lineups. Hopefully you guys are finishing up lineups too here. To recap for pitchers first, before we talk about which stacks we got the most of. Who did you land on the most, Greg? I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, so I think the Mets are the number one team to get to right now. The Washington Nationals are starting Corey Abbott today. And now I think I feel pretty good about where we have the ownership currently situated. And Corey Abbott, he's not going to pitch 6 innings or anything like that, but he does seem to be stretched out to pitch 3 or 4 innings, which I think is a pretty good situation for the Mets. The Zips projection for Abbott has him the 5.28 ERA as the fair talent level. If you look at his minor league numbers, he's been all over the place in the minor leagues this year. He pitched 6 innings for the Cubs, 4.5 ERA, 7.31 FIP. He made 10 appearances for the Nationals in AAA, 5.08 ERA, and a 4.71 FIP. These are not very good minor league numbers. The last time we saw him at the big league level, last year, 2021, 6.75 ERA, 6.98 expected ERA. So I think what probably happens is the Mets jump on him early, and then I think we're going to see not the best Nationals middle relief pitchers come into the game after him. We're going to see some of their lower leverage pitchers. So I think this is a really good spot for the Mets, and they currently do have the number one top stack odds for us on the board.
Not all jokes are funny. Calm down. Yeah, no, most of them that I say aren't. Makes you laugh, makes you cringe. Half empty, half full. I've never been described better in my entire life.
65 to 75 pitches today officially for Jacob deGrom.
0%. Such an easy 0%.
Do you know what the over-under for his strikeouts is today?
8.5, I believe. I'm trying to find it again.
7.5.
Oh, it's 7.5. Okay, I'm trying to find it. It's up still. Prize picks.
I don't know what it is over at Prize Picks. It's
Prize Picks.
You know how bad this Nationals lineup is and how much I like Jacob deGrom? I see he's throwing 65 pitches with an over-under of 7.5 strikeouts, and I'm thinking for sure I have to bet the under on it. It is tough to pull the trigger.
That just tells you how good he is. He's incredible. I hate Eric's mic. It looks like Cock Mountain.
That's why I like it.
Well, that's all the time we have here on the Live Before Lock show, I believe. Jordan,
are
you okay over the show? What's happening? We're at the end of the show. Oh, we got to talk stacks for the people, and then you got to give your home run call because them's the rules. What stack did you land on again for the people, Greg?
The New York Metropolitans. You landed on the Houston Astros. That was
Houston Astros. Still,
okay.
Still my yeah. That's the one that's going to win. So you can just withdraw your entries. It's cool.
And home run picks. Who's donging today?
Lots of dongs hanging out.
All right. Who do I want? Who would be most beneficial to me?
Jordan Klein's like, you're not going to do anything with that, Greg? You're not going to do anything with that?
This is very serious. Dong picks are very serious to me. I do not fuck around when it comes to these. All right. The hefty lefty, Dan Vogelbach, going yard today.
Wow. Wow, bro. Wow. That's Kobe White. Is that good? I thought that was a funny.
Oh, that was cool. I had no clue. I didn't even know there was
a
Kobe White
bro.
impression.
Wow.
All right.
Whoever it was that got drafted ahead of him, who was it at North Carolina? They're
Cam
better
Johnson.
Than he is. It would have been Cam Johnson. He got drafted right after him. I think
pulled that pretty quick. I feel like Joey Corman.
Except for you don't cheat at life. I am going to go. God, see, do I want to say Jose Miranda now? I don't think I do because I don't have nearly as much as I would want.
By the way, for people saying Aaron Judge in the chat, if you pick Aaron Judge to homer, it's you can't do that. It's cheating.
I take Jordan Alvarez too.
You can't take Coors Field games. You can't take Aaron Judge or like Pete.
Here's one. I got it. If you're stacking up Atlanta, this guy is going to be like under 1% owned. His name is Michael Harris II. He's going yard today out of the 9 hole against this Nelson character for Philadelphia. Best of luck to him. But Atlanta, another team that I do like getting to on this slate. Guys, that is the Live Before Lock show. Had an absolute blast today. Hopefully you guys did too as well. F you, Sean. What? Sean B? He's not even in the chat. I haven't seen that human being, that lovely person all day long. We just got the Athletics lineup. I'm going to add that too. But Greg, we got to get out of here. Any final words for the people?
I knew what your home run pick was, and you didn't make it. Your home run pick is Miranda.
Yeah, Jose Miranda.
Yeah, I know your home run pick better than you.
Well, yeah, it's probably true. Thank you so much to Jordan Klein. We got to get ourselves on out of here. No other shows the rest of the day. Tomorrow, we've got baseball. We've got golf. Check it all out. He's Greg. He's got a Lilo and Stitch shirt. It's awesome. I'm Eric. I am just got Cock Mountain.
The best.
Cock Mountain.
The best.